I'm getting warmed up. All right, given the time and we have all of our members, I'd like to start the meeting. Welcome to the Westwood Planning Board meeting. I'm Trevor Laubenstein, and I will be chairing this meeting tonight. All meetings are recorded by Westcat. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to record this meeting? And if so, please identify yourself so the audience is aware. Seeing none as usual. As a reminder, please turn off your cell phone ringers. The agenda is available at the back of the room. The meeting will follow the order on the agenda, and the meeting will be civil, and all people will be treated respectfully. The format of the meeting will be when an item is called, the applicant will come forward to the podium to present their application to the board. The board will proceed to staff comments. The board members will ask questions of the applicant, and then the public will be given a chance to comment. When it is time for the public comment period, the chairman will call those wishing to speak to the podium. Once at the podium, please identify yourself by stating your name and address for the record. All comments and questions shall be directed through the chair. All people will be given the opportunity to speak, but in the interest of time and fairness, repetitive or off-topic comments may be cut short. First, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, the item number 2, the approval of the performance guarantee and endorsement of the Canton Terrace Subdivision Plan. If you don't mind, I'd like to move that to after the 2 public applications that we have, the public hearings. Because no one is here for that application, if we just remember to go back to that after the Summer Street.
Okay. All right, are there any objections on the board?
Okay.
Seeing none? All right. Our first item of business is board reorganization. This is an annual tradition where at the first meeting of the year we discuss and reorganize the positions of chairman, vice chairman, and secretary. I guess I will open that up to discussion, and do I hear any motions for any positions?
Mr. Chairman, I nominate you, Trevor Laubenstein, as chair of the planning board.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so moved. Do I hear another nomination?
I'll nominate David Atkins as vice chair of the planning board.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And a third?
I'll nominate Steve Olenoff as secretary.
Do I have a second?
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. All right, unanimously voted on all 3.
Okay.
Thank you. Next item of business is skipping number 2, going on to University Station Development Area B, Brigham and Women's Hospital Development Project, review, public meeting. This is a proposal for a 2-story, 30,000 square foot building in phase 1 and a 4-story, 50,000 square foot building and structured parking garage in a phase 2. Is the applicant present, and who would like to take the floor? Please come up.
Let's see if you need. Okay, if you need the clicker at all.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations on
Thank you.
and members of the planning board. Thank you. I'm very pleased to be here tonight. My name is Steve Dempsey. I'm the executive director.
Excuse me 1 second, so
Not working.
just make sure it's all on.
I think it was.
Is it on?
That better? I'm Steve Dempsey. I'm the executive director of planning and construction for Brigham and Women's Hospital, and we're very pleased to be here tonight before the board, and we're very pleased with the opportunity to come to Westwood. I'm joined by my legal team of architects and consultants, and they can answer your questions. In the interest of time, I'm going to yield the rest of my time and introduce Emma Jones, who's going to proceed with the explanation of project.
Could I just ask you to speak directly into the microphone? We're having a little trouble with audio. Thank you.
What is it? Okay, try one. Come on, Star Search.
We'll just paraphrase for you.
Mike, you're out in the back. Did you check the, Nancy, someone's trying to get in the door?
Oh.
Front door, the door. Someone. Yeah.
I think we have to. Oh.
We locked it just in
Oh.
time.
Sorry, it automatically locks, and we can't unlock it until.
Live from the front of the building. It's good range.
Darn it. Come on. All right. Oh wait, no. Did that lock again?
This is too good. We don't want you to start.
All right. I don't know why. Yeah, it keeps locking. Unfortunately, I don't. Or wait, there's a brick right here.
Oh. She's a professional.
That might be a little.
Check it again.
Keep the door open.
We've waited this long. Let's wait for these people to go inside.
There were 6 of us. We solved it and solved it.
All right. I think it's time to start.
I won't be nearly as entertaining as that. My name is Emma Jones. I'm with Trammell Crow Company and CBRE New England, and here to speak on behalf of Brigham Women's and the partners regarding the project that we are bringing forth for University Station Westwood. That's right. Okay. So these are the items that we're going to cover this evening. We're going to do a general overview, which will include site plan, site lighting, traffic flow, pedestrian access, then the phasing of the construction, phase 1, 2A, and 2B, the landscaping, and then we will address the architecture and design of the building. So for the site overview, let me just go ahead and preface this by we went through all of the beta comments that we received and addressed each of the questions in this presentation. And I've noted on a number of the slides the section of and how it relates to the beta comment that was brought forth. So for this particular slide, there was a question as to the site limits of the Brigham Women's parcel. So as you see, it's highlighted in yellow. So that is the limit of the site for this particular PDR application. You can see the Marriott Hotel site to the right. I believe that there is, to the left of the Brigham site, there are condos proposed per NED, and then obviously above, sort of, if you go above the Brigham site, there's the park that was topic of discussion last time, and then obviously the other parcels that have not yet been decided. Phase 1, as you can see on the screen, will be 30,000 square feet, a 2-story building. The construction is slated for to begin in the summer of 2017 and be complete in the summer/fall of 2018. And we're looking for opening in the fall of 2018 with our first patient. This is the entire project, so phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 2 right now is predicted to follow, the planning phase of it will follow approximately 3+ years behind, behind the opening of phase 1. So once we've opened phase 1, we predict that we'll be headed into the design and planning of phase 2, approximately 3 years post that, and then the construction of the addition and the garage to begin 5 or more years after that. So we're aiming for 2023. With regards to site lighting, Beta had some comments regarding the ratios and the table that was provided. We unfortunately had not provided the most current lighting plan. So what I've included in your packets that you have in front of you, as well as on the screen, is the current lighting plan, and it does adhere to all of the design guidelines. Whereas the one that was included in the PDR package, there were some questions. So this should answer all of the questions regarding the ratios. If you look to the right of this on the screen, the Marriott is also providing lighting at on the perimeter of our property. So if you look at the lighting table, you'll notice that directly to the right of our building, the light levels per our photometrics read that it's 0, but it actually isn't, because you're going to get the benefit of the light from the Marriott lights. An additional question was the fact that as we build this parking garage, which will be 4 stories, and there's the potential of the condominiums to be next to that, of light pollution into the condos, and how we would prevent for that if, to obviously to be good neighbors. The idea is, as you can see from the section on the left, there will be, the wall will be high enough so that the headlights will not be seen through the openings. And so this, in order to prevent light pollution to the condominium, so they won't be affected by any after hours or late, or evening patient parking. In addition, there was a question regarding lighting up on the roof of the parking structure, and all of the lights will be either wall-mounted, or if necessary to achieve the required light levels, they will be pole-mounted. However, both will have shielding to prevent any sort of light pollution to the neighboring properties. With regards to traffic flow, we were made aware that it seemed slightly confusing if you don't really understand the purpose of the building and the flow as we're as our goal. So as you know, this is a medical office building, and we will have a significant flow of patients throughout the day. If you look as you come down the roadway, which is to be called Brigham Way, upon your approval, of course, you'll enter the site, and there's the centers. There's an island. There's a center turnaround with a drop off. So that's a one-way drop off. So that if you're not dropping off a patient, you can then continue to the left and park. If you are, you'll either continue back around the circle and go and park. But the idea is to keep all of the traffic flow in one direction. And a lot of this is for patient safety, especially because we are a medical facility. We will have older and less mobile patients. So that is for phase 1. As we go into phase 2, we'll continue with the same philosophy regarding the flow of traffic, not to change it. But as you notice, with the addition of the garage does have 2 entrances, has one at the top of the screen and one at the bottom. So you can enter and exit on both sides of the garage, and that was a question that was raised. With regards to pedestrian access, we have created walkways throughout the site, and all of our pathways will be coordinated with NED's final park plan. So they will link up so that there is direct access and flow from our site through the park. The same with phase 2. Regarding the construction phasing, obviously phase 1 is probably the easiest to explain because it's a dirt lot right now, and we can park right there. As we go into phase 2A, which would be the garage, so we're going to construct phase 1, which is the 30,000 square foot 2-story building. Then phase 2A will be the structured parking garage, which is 4 stories. If you notice, The parking spaces between the proposed parking garage and the 30,000 square foot building, we have created a 2-lane drive aisle, and that is to allow for patients to have better access and circulation through that area, but also to enable staff and construction staff to park in the rear spaces closer to the train tracks.
Could you go back one slide? Forward.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Clear? Okay. And then as we go to phase 2B, the garage obviously will be built, so there is parking in the garage. The idea with, because this is, obviously, it's a public building, we have patients, et cetera. The goal is to have all of the construction access from the rear, which would be the train track side of phase 2, in order to allow safe pedestrian flow of traffic in the front of the building, obviously from the garage to the existing 30,000 square foot story building, 30,000 square foot 2-story building, pardon me, and also from the Amtrak site, and then the walking pathways through the site. With regards to the landscaping, there was a question as to the dumpster location. The dumpster will be located at the rear of the building. It will be at the same level as the sidewalk, so there will be a continuous sidewalk that passes in front of it. Another question that came up was regarding recycling. Recycling will be gathered within the building, so at the various workstations, there will be recycling bins. Then on the first floor, there's a storage room basically directly above where the arrow is to the dumpster inside the building. So what will occur is the recycling will be collected, it will be stored there, and then it will be picked up by a vending service. This also, there was also a question regarding hazardous materials. The only hazardous materials that we will have on site would be sharps, needles, or vaccination vials that have been used. There is a requirement of how this trash has to be disposed of, and that's called red bag trash. There will be biohazard closets within the facility. The red bag trash and sharps will be collected. They will be stored in a biohazard room, again, in the storage area around the dumpster, and that will be picked up by a separate vending company.
So what are the doors at the rear of the building there, and then uses?
The doors?
Yeah, how many doors are there, and how would they be used?
So there are 3 doors. I don't know if the pointer, does it work?
No, I'm sorry, the pointer doesn't
That's okay.
really work
Can I
on
just
here.
walk up and?
Yep.
Stair, and
Is
there's
that okay?
the receiving one, and there's the bio waste has its own pass through, it looks like.
So, the door right here, this is to the stair. That will mainly be staff entrance. And what that allows is, it allows for our staff to enter the building and circulate throughout the building without having to come through the main access of the patients. The next door over is the delivery door. So any delivery to the building will be made through this door. There is, within the building at that point, there's a storage room, and then across the hall from that, there's a room that we say is a decanting room. So basically, any packages that are delivered, you can unload them, and the various departments within the building can come and pick up their supplies. The third door over, that is the door to the biohazard closet, and that is where the vending company will come and pick up that. It's not, that's a little misleading. You enter that door, and the biohazard room is within the building. So there's a door in, and then you go in and you go through another door in order to retrieve biohazard per requirements.
And where does the recycling go?
Recycling will go, it'll be within that second door in that storage room. There will be a container in there for it to be gathered and then picked up. This is the landscaping plan for Phase 2. As you can see, there'll be an additional dumpster, and the buildings will function similarly. A question was raised at the beginning of the beta, is sort of the initial, is one of the first 2 pages of the beta comments of what would we do on the Phase 1 site if, for some reason, Phase 2 was delayed more than the 6 years proposed, or if it never occurred. So what we have done is provided an alternate landscaping plan. This is just an example of what would be provided if, for some reason, Phase 2, being the parking structure and the second building of 50,000 square feet, if that is not built, there will be additional landscaping provided. Now I will let Brian McKenna with Canon Design take over.
And all those slides are all in the book we just gave us?
Sorry, I should have explained that starting out. The binders that we provided to you, the first tab has the presentation that we're going over tonight. The second tab has the beta comments. The third, the health board comments. And then after that, every consultant has given a written their written comments to all of the beta comments. Those are also tabbed, as well as our application, O&M manual, et cetera.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Brian McKenna, and I am with Canon Design, the architect and engineers for this project. And if you'd give me a second, I was told I have materials, and if it's okay, I'd like to spread them on your table so you all see them. Is that allowable?
Sure, go for it.
Excuse me. Show and tell. I'll explain these a little later on as we're going through, but it'll be helpful as it ties to the rest. All right, so as Emma alluded to earlier, it is a 30,000 square foot, 2-story on Phase 1, 50,000 square foot Phase 2 building of similar nature. The building will be made up with primary care and urgent care, primarily doctor's offices, and urgent medical specialties to go along with that, and imaging and diagnostics, such as X-ray, ultrasound, and a small lab area.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can I just ask Abby a quick question? What exactly are we working toward approval on as part of this application? Is it just the building, or is it the entire 3 phases of the site?
The entire thing.
Okay.
The project development review can include, your project review can include all the phases. So the whole site and the whole use.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
No worries, no worries. So here we start with the image you've seen, and just as a larger scale picture, we've looked at development area B as sort of a collection of individual buildings, but they need to be harmonious with each other in there. And this is sort of the second of the larger scale buildings, with the hotel being one, this proposed building as a possible second, with a couple of the smaller restaurant at the front, and as we heard earlier, condominiums and some other development along the way. So we're sort of a bridge in the scale of these. So we've strived to be harmonious, but also stand individually, if you will, if that's a word. I'm going to walk you through now each elevation of the building, and just to orient, at the top, University Ave. At the bottom is the train station, the tracks. To the right is the Marriott and the Amtrak station, and to the left would be the Bridges building. So at the top of the slide, our front door elevation, the one facing University Ave. You'll see here a stack, as you see in front of you, the materials we've gone through. We've done a lot of work and have developed some materials we believe are consistent with the University Ave selection and typology. We start with a stone base along the bottom of the building, and then we're proposing a full rain screen system above that. And a rain screen system is simply an applied screen on top of a very efficient energy envelope. The rain screen, I'll call it the maroon material in front of you, is a 6-inch by 5-inch board-like material to simulate sort of the wood feeling that's sort of down Panera, I think in the retail area sort of has. It's a natural stacking of stone and wood in harmony. And then the gray material up the top is a cementitious fiber board. And we pulled from the gables this idea of the material. What the gables does successfully in its individual elements is reflect there's a lot of individual units in that. For our building, we have one main purpose, that is doctor's office to serve the patients. So we felt a larger use of this material, or a stronger, larger band of it was appropriate. You'll notice across the front a lot of glazing. That is our lobby area, our reception waiting area for the public. As I said earlier, we strive to meet the energy code and if possible go beyond it with an envelope that is very efficient, keeping all our energy bills down. So we've concentrated a lot of our glazing toward the front where a lot of the people are. And you'll see as we move around the building, the glazing gets a little less as we move along. At the bottom of the slide is the elevation that would face the Amtrak station. In careful consideration, we looked at when you come off 128 and you hit that intersection with the Amtrak station ahead of you and you're looking sort of across what's going to be the next restaurant. That corner is a pretty prominent corner. So we want to make sure we kept consistency from the front around that side, and also gave a face to what would be the side of the urgent care entrance in the lower right. As we move along the building, the elevation on the top is the rear of the building, or the facade that faces the tracks, the platform on the 128 station. And you'll see that we've decided to continue that darker gray material around the corner, and we've accentuated the stair with a window to help bring that as another focal point. As for those who I've often stood on that platform in the morning looking over and saying, wow, that'll be a nice little view. So we've opted to continue that material around the side to tie it along the front as a public face. And as we progress along the back, we've kept the stone and I'm going to call it the wood board simulated plank on the bottom, and a lighter material of the cementitious board on the back to break up the building both vertically and horizontally with elements. The elevation at the bottom is the south elevation. Obviously, that is where the future expansion would be. So we've been tactical in minimizing some impacts on that side. But again, wrapping the same elevation material from the back of the building around to the side and ending the entrance. We felt very, as the bylaws said, and we feel strongly, you need to have a clear wayfinding element. So I think our entrances are very pronounced with a taller element for the main entrance and a smaller, slightly understated element for the urgent care, hierarchically preparing those entrances. This is a look at our thoughts for phase 2. You'll notice in phase 1 had that slope and the parapet sort of raises up. That parapet serves two purposes. In phase 1, it helps to hide the penthouse and some of the mechanical units. And also we felt strongly it helps to transition from phase 1 to phase 2, where we take that dark gray band that is the cap of sort of our phase 1 at a 2-story building, and it becomes a feature, proposed feature element in the middle of what would be a 4-story building. So tying that together horizontally along the site. Same materials, it's envisioned that the same materials, if available at the time, would carry forward. Again, I'll walk you through a few of these elevations. So phase 2, you've already seen this, phase 1, then this phase 2 addition, and the garage to the left. Our front elevation, I apologize, smaller in scale, but it's a pretty long elevation. You'll see our phase 1 building to the left, and as that material slides across, in this, I'm going to say graphically, we've opted to sort of lighten phase 2, just so there's a clear delineation as we're looking at it here. But that gray band would slide across the front of that building, tying the two together. We'd keep the wood or the wood look, that plank and the stone along the bottom at the pedestrian level, and then transfer it to the garage. I think the garage is envisioned to be precast, similar to the one in the back of Gables, And probably at that point, there'd be some sort of color tint to the precast to try and tie in some of the elements we have of the maroon or the earth tone qualities. At the lower level is the elevation, if you were looking from Amtrak. So our Phase 1 building is in the foreground. There are mechanicals on the roof, and then that is the 4-story Phase 2 building in the background with the garage.
So the Phase 2 building, the third and the fourth stories are actually going to be on top of the Phase 1 for a
No.
little bit?
The only part that would extend is the elevator core. Our design of Phase 1 has the entrance on that far right-hand side, and that allows us to extend the elevators.
So can you show us where the old building was and the Phase 1 and Phase 2 is?
Certainly. So this is Phase 1. And when we enter our building, our elevator and stair core is here. So we would look to extend that, to not duplicate it, and that would serve as the elevator stair core for both Phase 2 and Phase 1. So that's the only portion that's on top of.
So what are those three sections on top of the Phase 1 building? No.
This here? Yeah, that would
Yeah.
be that's the extension of the elevator, because the elevator currently goes 2 floors,
Mhm.
and we replace them one at a time and extend that shaft up to go 4 floors to connect to this building here. So it's only, you'll
Right.
see in a roof plan later on. It's a
The
small
elevator
portion.
isn't as wide as that at all.
There's the elevator and a stair.
Okay, so both of them, okay.
The vertical circulation. This is the rear of the building. As you'll see, our Phase 1 is to the right. We chose on here to, I want to point, makes it easier. It's easier with my hands. But, so Phase 1 is here. Again, this is that mimic of the front, that band that wrapped around. We chose to break it so you wouldn't have, so we'd have a little interest along the backside. And you'll see in a perspective we have later, it helps to stretch the horizontalness of this to an element, to the garage element, as you sort of transverse across the elevation. And this is the elevation as we're looking from the future condo. We're very close to the lot line. It's envisioned there will be a green wall, some sort of ivy growing on the garage at that point to screen it, along with the elements that Emma said of the high wall to block headlights.
Do you have a top view anywhere so we can see how this?
A roof plan?
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, of
You
all
want
the.
me-
pieces
You want me to go
being
to it
together.
now?
It's easy.
So up the top there is our roof plan. So in this orientation, University Ave is to the top. Phase 1 is to the right. You'll see that small portion right in the middle is where the elevator stair extends, and then Phase 2 happens next to it.
And what do you have, like walkways into the garage that extend over, and how wide are they?
The buildings will not connect at this point. It is the elevator, there's an elevator core envisioned in the front of the garage.
Well, if you go back to where you were before, there was something there between the garage and the building. What is that? There's that gray area.
It may have been, at one point, it may have been a bridge connector. I think there's talk between that. I'm not sure where it lands, but right now, the elevator bank is at the front of the, at the front of the garage. We want to keep a lot of pedestrians in there, that front of the building, entering the front along.
So right now, you're not proposing.
That right there is a graphic mistake.
Okay.
I'll say that. There is no bridge at this point. This is the rendering from, looking from the Amtrak side with our urgent care in the foreground and our Phase 1 lobby now becoming Phase 2, the center of the building, sort of in the middle of the image. And our view along the back, this is what I was alluding to earlier, where we start to break up that horizontal, get from the 2-story scale to the back story, to the 4-story, and then to the garage. The materials I've outlined in front of you, similar to this board. You'll see the stone on the board. The cementitious plank is represented, and that's the lower material, which would be laid out and set in 6-inch boards by 5-inch. to have a more of a small scale breakdown at that pedestrian level. And then above that, the darker gray and light beige cemented fiber cement boards would be more in a 2-foot by 10-foot panel as they tie together. The metal, I'm going to say Lucabond material, is what would be infilled above the windows and around the entrances to stay in a consistent color hue. The dark black is the framing of the windows. I will say these windows right now are visioned as storefront and curtain wall with a 2-inch profile. So it'll be a consistent profile as you're looking at it of the dark black anodized. We have a glazing sample, which would be clear glazing with a solar tint. And then the corrugated metal is the color envisioned for the paint color envisioned for the mechanical screening that would be on the roof.
So that's what we see here, and that would be horizontal?
Yes. This is that roof plan depicting the horizontal roof screening element in the upper right. It's tough to read, but this just sort of calls out the parapet. So our building is a 13-foot floor to floor. Majority of the parapet is a simple 3-foot parapet. It steps up at that entry, as I said, where the slope comes up to, I want to say, to 37.6. And that is consistent with the mechanical and the penthouse and any of the screening would all be at that same elevation. And how we transition over to phase 2 with another slight bump up as we get to a slight increase in height as we get to the 4-story building. And that is the end of my portion. Other questions? Sure.
Could you point to the picture and point to what's here? Because I can't quite follow what's what. I mean, there's a lot of things that all look the same color in front of me, and a lot of more interesting colors on the screen.
Stone is this base here.
Mm-hmm.
This is the plank here, and it comes in this thing. It is set up at 3 very slight variations, so you
Right.
get variation in the product.
Right, but that's not variation, right?
That's the degree.
That's not the degree of variation. I don't see any variation, actually. Well, I don't see that variation there, I guess is my comment. So you can.
Okay. I got you.
Okay.
That's the variation of
Okay.
the product.
So those are like in wood length, so they look like wood because of the all along and.
It would look like, yeah, so the upper scale, the upper portion here, so this is a 2-foot by 10-foot panel as it comes, and down there is a 6-inch by 5-foot. To give that feel of a wood and a smaller breakdown of material at the pedestrian scale. So it wasn't a large panel at the pedestrian level.
What is that screen that was supposed to be 6 inches in front of the building?
This element here, and thank you for reminding me, this element projects 6 inches from the face of this. A simple shift in the wall thing. I'm sorry, I can't see. That top cap element is a 6-inch.
So there's a space
Projection.
between that and the
Well,
building, or?
I don't have a set, but the bottom wall is, say, here, and the top is there, 6-inch change in plane.
What's in between? Or the whole building comes out, or?
Yeah, the whole building.
The whole building.
That material, the
So
wall
the building
section.
has an actual overhang of 6 inches
The building does not, the facade does.
facade. So the windows are even with the face of the building and the facade
Yes.
sticks out, except for the windows are 6 inches.
Yes, there's a recess. So the assembly for a rain screen system would be the stud wall. There'd be 4 inches of insulation, and then this rain screen material. The window would sit in the stud wall plane at its simplest point. What we've done is at the first floor, the stud wall plane, say, is 0.0. At the second floor, that stud wall has shifted 6 inches just to sort of overhang to get a break in the elevation horizontally, so it wasn't such a flat facade. You add a little depth to it, but the windows are always within the envelope system.
Are there any other presenters who'd like to take the floor?
Oh, on this, what's the white, did we cover that one?
That's the rear of the building. That's we
Okay.
changed that material along the back side and the south side.
Okay, I guess if there are no more presenters from the proponent, thank you very much, by the way. Can we hear some comments from our staff and our peer review group and company?
So for the record, my name is Merrick Turner. I'm with Beta Group. I'm the project manager for the peer review team. I'm here with Mike Sinesi tonight from Cow Design Group. Mike is the architectural peer reviewer. You have in front of you our April 27th letter, just running through the zoning bylaw relative to the PDR reviews and the various criteria, which is the standard format we tend to approach these reviews with. I think just in terms of a quick overview, and as you probably inferred from the letter, I think a lot of our comments were technical in nature, coordination in nature, and I think that the proponent, with the responses we've just seen tonight and the presentation we're just seeing, is going a long way to resolving those questions. I do think we need some time following the meeting just to review this and expand on the letter in terms of, yes, the various issues are resolved, or there may be some additional information required, or we have a question or two. So, but I would say that's the process we envisioned in terms of closing this out, but we did not see major technical issues in terms of the presentation, or in terms of our review, coordination type issues. I'd like to have Mike come up in a moment and just talk to the architectural review. The building, in terms of its design, as some of the board may be aware, in terms of its overall shape and configuration, has really remained somewhat intact, but there's been a lot of material changes and so forth, and we think that the applicant has been working hard to listen to our comments, listen to the board comments, in terms of modifying the design and really making it fit, I think, a little better in the development as a whole, with the various materials that are used in the hotel and other surrounding sites. So we certainly see that as a positive step in the development of this project. As I mentioned, the site comments, we're looking for some clarifications. I'll run through the letter in a moment after Mike's spoken, just highlight a few areas where, just as we're seeing information here, we just want to highlight some issues for the board that we think we would like to work with the applicant a little bit more on, perhaps. As they commented earlier in the process, I think the phasing raises some interesting questions and considerations too, in terms of when are other aspects of the development that relate to this, the green space in front, when do those occur in the overall process? They may not be something that the applicant can control, but something that perhaps the board should consider in terms of how the build-out's occurring, where various things are being placed. So with that, I'd like to have Mike come up, just talk to the architecture, and then I'd like to come back and just highlight a few points in our overall letter.
Good evening, I'm Mike Sinesi, peer architectural review architect. I work with Cow Design Group on behalf of Beta. So thank you to my colleague. Looks good, nice design. I think most of the points that we raised in the April 27th letter have been addressed in this presentation. Of course, now this opens up some other points and some other issues. As Merrick suggested, we'd like to look at these and talk with colleagues and the applicant about some of these details. Some of the points that I would want to raise moving forward have to do with perhaps a little more detailed review of the Phase 2 elevations on the design. As many of you know, we've spent some time off hours in closed session with the applicant, looking at the elevations of the building, of the Phase 1 building, and have a pretty good understanding of how that facade lays out. We'd like to have that same understanding for Phase 2 as well. Especially also for the garage, which should also be described in terms of the materials. So we would want to see the materials for the garage as well. There is, not in this not in this image on the screen, but on the more complete elevation, perhaps, Brian, if I can go back to that? Just back and forth? Am I doing that? Oh, okay, cool. Yes, right there, Abby, please, thank you. On the garage, we'd like to see the material that you mentioned, precast for the garage panels. Perhaps we can get, whether that has exposed aggregate or not, that sort of thing. An example of the materials used for the garage. Also, the headers appear to be white. Will that be the same cementitious board material that's used on the back side of the building itself? Question about. Sure. But we'd want a clarification on that.
When you say headers, what do you mean?
The header, above the openings in the garage, there's a white line described there. We'd like to know what that white line is, what that material is. There appears to be some spandrel glass on the project. And I noticed that your sample is of the insulated glass unit, so we'd want to see what the spandrel glass is. It looks like it's fairly consistent graphically.
It would be more of a, let's say, a shadow or opaque glass in the gray family of the not as dark as the.
Okay.
So you still see the window opening, but we've covered it in that same.
Sure.
Realm. A little bit of datum lines, a little bit.
Now, in this elevation, you hinted at this, that the dark panels that we see on the left on the Phase 1 building, will that same tonal quality be used on the Phase 2 building? So this is more of a diagram rather than a true representation of the literal colors across. Sorry, I don't mean to be addressing the applicant. I should be addressing the board. I apologize. But I think just for clarification purposes, if I'm not incorrect in stating this, this is a diagram more than a true representation of the facade, because the
Yes,
Phase 2.
graphically, that's, I said, Phase 2 in the garage is sort of at a lighter than Phase 1.
But that's just graphics for this representation. Okay. And will there be a cap at the stone base, this, particularly at the windows? Will there be, at one point we had discussed perhaps like a blue stone cap or a cut stone cap?
I think it will be a cap in the same
In the t-
family as that.
Okay. And likewise, the question applies to the parapet around the perimeter at the top of the building, a cap?
Yes.
Okay.
Just a simple parapet coping cap.
Okay. You mentioned the facade changes. In terms of the garage and the plan layout of, will there be a stair tower, elevator tower, or several stair towers, I assume? And where would those discharges be at grade?
There would be, at an early stage, there would be a stair tower in the back, and in the front corner, at that tower, that element to the left of the garage, and that would have an elevator for the garage and a stair tower.
So, okay. So, persons using the garage would be in the garage, come down to grade, and then circulate out, and then enter the building through the front doors. Okay. Roofing material wasn't discussed, but TPDM, TPO,
Yes.
white, I'm assuming a low albedo.
White, or I would say even on this, the dark would be more in concert with what the material is. Open to either.
And will there be any building-mounted illumination or light fixtures on the building? You showed a lighting,
There would be signage.
lighting plan.
And then there will probably be one or two, actually, I don't believe there will be much lighting on the building because of the parking lot lighting.
And you brought up signage, which was not discussed here, but was in
No, it was
the
submitted as a
package.
second.
And will that be addressed separately in greater detail? There were some issues and some concerns about the signage.
We can answer those questions today if you'd like.
Okay. There were, the question arose as to how the back sides of the signs would be addressed.
And the field color that's on the front, whether the lettering would be the same color on the back.
Okay. And I believe that one of the signs appeared to exceed the area, allowable area. But that was a point in question. We
I
weren't-
didn't catch that one.
So that would be something to be resolved. And that ends my questions.
Did I miss it? Is there an elevator in the garage?
The applicant said yes. Thank you.
So if I can take a moment, I'll just highlight quickly some of the items in the letter, some of the things that we've seen tonight. Abby, can you just put us back to the two site plans at the very beginning? I think there was a phase 1 and phase 2. Just keep going. All right. Just go back right to the very beginning, I think. Okay. Just one more forward. Okay, keep going. Oh, okay. We just skipped through the site. Next, keep going. Keep going. Yeah. Okay. This is good. This is good. So just using this for reference. Looking at the letter, starting on our page 5. I'll use this just as a point in case, just for reference. But we had a couple of comments as we look back at the landscape plan. On the master plan, there was various landscaping elements shown in the master plan along this edge and along this edge. This is the garage in the future is what I'm referring to, and along this edge here. So just view this as a phase 2 for right now. I did see some alluding to those additional plantings in this presentation. I think we'd like an opportunity just to see the plan and review the plan and make sure we're okay with that. But we certainly like the idea of screening this edge in a full build condition against the condos, which will eventually be over here, and views from the park on this edge. So looking at that plan and any additional plantings that can be placed along here consistent with the hotel site, we would also just welcome that consideration too. In the phase 1, there was mention of the possibility of what happens if there's a delay and there's a long period in between phase 1 and phase 2. Is a lawn just an appropriate feature here? And again, the applicant has responded to that. We would just encourage the board, I think, just to take that kind of consideration and look at that later in the future, maybe as a condition to it, or whatever decision is made, in terms of looking at the plan at that time and at the appropriate detail. You may want to adjust what's there. In terms of consistency with prior PDRs, and I think I understand why this was done. Prior PDRs were planting in the parking areas, trees and so forth in these islands and aisles. I presume this is not being done in the original plan because this site will eventually be replaced, built upon effectively, so the planting may not get as established as everyone would like. So there's an option for the board there, I think, in terms of how much you push into the planting schemes and trees and so forth in these areas. And we're also looking for consistency along this edge with the hotel site too. So details, but something we'd just like the opportunity to go back through the plan with now that we have responses in hand. On utilities, we haven't seen anything yet from the fire chief saying he's met with the applicant, the development team, to review the various aspects of the design in terms of firefighting protection, so forth, for both phases 1, phase 2. That raises questions about the extent of utilities that get built. One of the features in the plans is looping utilities such as water supply from one side, the northerly side, the Marriott site, if you will, through to the Bridges driveway. When are those elements done? It appears to be in phase 2. Is the fire chief okay with that? I'm assuming we're seeing responses here in the documentation, but we'd like to see those kinds of issues just closed out, and that's what we'll be looking for. In terms of the garage structure itself, again, based on the plans, We're assuming that a subsequent submission is going to show the appropriate utilities going to the garage, additional power, so forth for elevators, lighting, whatever the case may be, which also were not in the original application. But again, we would presume we're seeing responses and additional detail on that we'd just like to go through.
Mark, did you get an answer to one of the questions you asked about phase one, phase two, whether the left end of the parking lot is connected all the way around through?
That one's,
So-
yeah, that one's coming up. What you're referring to, Steve, is this here. And again, I think that goes back to the time frame question, which is there a connection in a full build? The condo fills this site in and creates a connection to the bridge's driveway. In the early phase, we don't see a traffic need for that. Because it's only 30,000 square feet. The traffic need would come more in the full build where you're adding another 50,000 square feet. It would make more sense to have an outlet over here, especially with the garage outlet on the side too. However, the fire chief may want the option of having access via bridges. He may want at least a driveway extending out to bridges. And you'll see that comment comes up in a moment in public safety, I think is where we included that. So right now, I didn't hear tonight that there was a driveway, whether there is or an extension of that driveway, whether there are sponsors and perhaps the applicant can.
And at some point, I have questions because we're presented with this area right here, but there are parts of the project which really relate very closely to this. Roadways, there's a roadway that's outside of this area. There's that intersection which is outside of this area, and then of course that driveway. So how do we go about permitting this and getting these all done at the same time?
And we'll come on to the driveway in just a moment because we do have a couple of comments on that as well. In terms of circulation, traffic and so forth, in general, we did not have issue with the amount of parking that was being provided in the individual phases. It appeared to meet standard industry regulations. In terms of the floor plan to the garage, I know in past projects that we've reviewed with the town, we think it'd be a good idea to see perhaps a floor layout to the garage just to see what parking configuration, dimensions and so forth are being provided there. I know that the board has been interested in parking sizes to make sure that stall sizes and so forth, that they're appropriate. And I think it just makes sense just to think through. We presume that dimensionally the aisles will work, the spaces will work, the building's more or less the right size to operate as it's conceptually intended to operate. So just a little more thought in terms of a parking layout, a little more demonstration that's been thought through and there isn't a dimensional issue or a concern in terms of the parking being proposed there. Just down at the bottom of page 6, comment PA7. And can we just go to the next, a couple of circulation slides? The slides with the operations on. You know, the various arrows and so forth, just showing channelization. Okay. So I think this is an area where we've got an idea or two that we'd like to share with the applicant. We were just looking at this today, in fact. And this is going to be a challenge because there's relatively little frontage in front of the building, and it may be difficult to improve on the situation. But there are a lot of moves going on here in terms of entrance into the parking, one-way circulation, a lot of opportunities for conflict and so forth. And we're wondering if there might be some ways, perhaps just to clarify this a little bit more. And there's a couple of ideas that we'd like to share with the applicant and see if they're acceptable or not, or whether they're some function of an alternative which is problematic in terms of just the building operations and so forth. But there's I think we share the concerns, and I'm sure we'll hear some from the board tonight, that there is a lot going on here, and I think necessarily a lot going on, but there may be some opportunity perhaps just to simplify this. just at the back of the building, loading and unloading. Phase 1, the dumpsters are here. Phase 2, the dumpsters will be over here. We don't see an issue with the loading, unloading, trash collection and so forth, but in terms of just operation, I think it'd be worthwhile just seeing some turn templates run through here for a trash truck, just to make sure that there's not an issue in terms of fitting a truck in between these curb returns. This looks a little bit tight. We wouldn't expect it to be operational with parking in place. We'd expect that to be off-peak type stuff. But again, just a little information just to show things are dimensionally appropriate, sufficient, and so forth. Public safety, we talked a little bit about that. Just getting documentation from the fire department that they're all set, that they've seen their various truck turn templates. In essence, fire emergency access is coming down what would be Bridges driveway, I believe it's to be called, and then circulating through and around the site. In phase 1, the driveways allow that full access. In phase 2, access can be via the Bridges driveway as well. And as we were just discussing, there may be a desire on the part of the fire department to have that access via the Bridges driveway as part of the initial phase too. Stormwater management. Stormwater management seems fine. The proposed stormwater schemes seem consistent with the overall master plan in terms of the configuration, the way that stormwater is being routed through various recharge systems, and it meets the Mass DEP stormwater standards. In this area of the site, there's a large infiltration system being placed just at the back of the building in here. The geology of the site was such that the soils were a poor condition as we got down towards the railroad and so forth. So we're just suggesting, as we have in past applications, that some soil testing just be done through that area just to verify assumptions are in line with reality. The applicant did use an appropriately conservative number, so we wouldn't expect a problem, but we think that that's an appropriate measure to test. Outdoor lighting, I saw a revised table. Could we just go to the lighting there, Abby, for a moment? So just a couple of numbers that just catch my attention. Average 1, we'd be looking for a higher average than that, simply because the rest of the site is lit to a higher average than that. The design criteria, I think, was an average of 4. Let me just see. Yeah, design guide average 4, and the average to minimum ratio should be about the same. So as far as the lighting plan is concerned, this, as currently designed, might light a little differently to the rest of the site. So we want to just make sure that this is consistent with the various sites that have been approved around it. And then spill prevention and response. A standard O&M plan was developed for the master plan. It's a fairly substantial document, and the applicant has taken that, much as other applications have, edited that down appropriately. So we don't have a particular issue with the O&M plan that was submitted. A couple of minor comments in terms of contact information. And as was remarked in the presentation, this is not a site that we'd expect hazardous materials issues to be associated with. I believe there's no emergency generation facility or anything like that, correct? So that seems fine. And then on signage, as Mike had commented, signage was submitted for phase 1, not for phase 2. We did have one comment relative to the zoning reg in terms of the size of directional size not being compliant. I think that that's going to be necessarily not compliant. I would imagine it's going to be hard to fit the information that the applicant is looking to fit on what I believe is a standard 2x2 sign. So even though we're pointing it out as a not fitting with the zoning reg, it may not be able to, just as a practical matter. So that's a quick overview of the commentary that we have, but like I say, I think the applicant has gone a long way to answering the questions that we did have, and this looks like a very thorough response to the letter that we submitted.
So sorry, just to be clear, so the binder we have has your comment, your reaction essentially to the commentary that's in your initial letter.
Yes.
But none of us have really had a chance to look at this, obviously, because
That's
it's fresh stuff. Okay, thank you. Yep. Are there any additional staff comments or comments from Abby or others before we open up to board remarks?
I think I did speak with a deputy fire chief earlier today. He had said he was working with the applicant, or maybe it was the project engineer for the property owner. They met last week and they are working on, I think, revising the hydrant location so that those were acceptable. Although they did have concerns about that entry into the site. If there was an emergency, they're going to want to come right down and go the most direct route, so they'd rather just go to the left of that circle rather than looping around to the right. So that was a concern. If there's any way to make that more direct, they would go over by that urgent care. They also questioned a gate. Is there a gate proposed on the property? I didn't see a gate. Okay. That there's no gate connections? Okay. All right. So I only had verbal comments at this point.
Okay. All right, then I guess we should hear some comments or questions from the board.
I have two basic questions. Again, you started to bring it up. I mean, what are we permitting here? We're permitting both Phase 1 and Phase 2 at the same time, yet it's for a building that won't be built for 3 years. Now, normally we put a time limit on, the start of construction. How do we permit a building which won't even be started for 3 years and have that permit effective for that period of time? And is there any more review later on when that building is built, or is just all the permitting done right now? Dan, maybe you might help with this?
Sure.
Q.
I had a feeling that you might ask. Just for the record, Dan Bailey, special counsel to the selectmen and the board on the University Station project. I think what you would probably want to do is condition any approval. So, a lot of the questions that have come up here that we heard from Merrick are the types of questions that are, probably further along in the design process than Brigham may necessarily be on Phase 2. So one way to approach it is to simply condition the project development review on, for Phase 2 on coming back with, updated plans.
Yeah, it sounded, I guess I got a little confused. It sounded like, I'm sorry, I can't remember your name from Cal, Mike. Sorry, too many names in the room. Your question to them about whether the Phase 2 building is really rendered accurately or rendered completely, was the answer to that it's faded because it's a faded graphic because of phasing, or because it's just not designed? Sure.
It was a graphic technique to delineate Phase 1 from Phase 2.
Yep.
Phase 1 is sort of the focus, and Phase 2, this was a continuation of it, so just a graphic.
Sure.
We put thought into it as best we can for looking out
Sure.
to the future to say
Okay.
this is what the intent would be.
Right, but it's not at the same level of completeness design-wise as Phase 1, obviously. Okay, and same for the garage, I assume, right? Okay.
If I may.
Sure.
Ronald Ruth, lawyer with Sharon and Lodgen in Boston, resident of Needham, and here on behalf of the applicant. And just to put a little gloss on the information that you just see for special counsel, is the application is for the entire 80,000 square foot project. And in my mind, there's two questions inherent in the board member's question. One, is it permissible for the board to issue a permit that would be effective even though phase 2 of the project would not occur for beyond the typical 2-year period? And I think the legal learning on that is yes, because the project is defined, certainly our 30,000 square foot initiation will be commencement of the project for purposes of satisfying the law of have we not let our permit lapse. So in my mind, the answer is yes, it can be permitted, and the request is to permit the entire 80,000 square foot project with the parking ramp, and with a likely condition that you would take a look at the design and some of the other detail issues before a building permit was issued for phase 2, but there would be a permit for the entirety of the project.
So, and a related question is, again, and we saw in the traffic circulation where the important elements of the traffic are not within those red lines in your area. There are important areas that fall still under NED. So how do we handle that as part of this project, this permitting?
Just briefly, Nora just reminded me, as she always does, and reminds the rest of us, that the way that the restaurants were done in phase 1 is kind of similar to what's being proposed here, which is there was a schematic design approval at the PDR level, and then they came back with a conformance determination. So really, if we want to get really down to the legalities of it, and Ron and I haven't talked about this, but I think we're all thinking the same thing. What they're asking you for here is a PDR review of the 80,000 square foot, but there would be a condition that they would have to come back for a conformance review as required by the bylaw for phase 2. I think that's how we paper it out.
Thank you.
I'm just going to address your question regarding the surrounding properties and NED. Paul Sincato with NED has prepared an enabling package to go along with our project, and that addresses the timing of the park as it relates to the Brigham property, as well as the entry drive and the connection between that drive and the Marriott property.
All right, well, let me get into some of the details on this, why I asked this, because if we go back to the traffic picture.
Oops.
Right, so as part of the review previously, it said there's no additional traffic study needed, but we created really a four-way intersection here where I'm calling it Brigham Drive.
Brigham Way.
Brigham Way.
Drive. Mm-hmm.
Now, so where Brigham Way hits this, your express lanes there that you have going to where the garage will be, and then the other road that goes into the Marriott Hotel's parking lot. That's a four-way intersection that wasn't in previous plans, and it's obviously not a huge intersection, but still, we need to know what is the traffic expected here? What are the traffic counts? Do we need a two-way stop sign, a four-way stop sign? Doubt that we need a traffic light, but that should be confirmed. So we need some kind of mini traffic study to show how that intersection would work.
It's currently designed as a four-way stop.
But could we have something to back up these, traffic counts or whatever, what's expected there? The next problem is immediately after that, you have a four-way intersection, and now that goes into your circular pattern there. So I'm happy to see that you have a one-way through that parking lot. That immediately eliminates that situation. But you have automobiles coming through a four-way intersection, and immediately they are encountering, because usually you go through an intersection, you got a little bit of time before you come to the next thing. and we have in our subdivision rules and regs, large distances from one intersection to another. Now, here you don't have an intersection, but you're going into a situation where there's conflicting traffic. The fact you have that one way eliminates a lot of that. We didn't see that before. But what is, does the traffic coming in, is it allowed to go left immediately, or does it have to go around the rotary there, and what is, to keep them going right around there, which would eliminate quite a few conflicts, because the biggest conflict there was someone going circular around that would encounter an automobile coming in there, particularly if they wanted to go left into that lot. That would be a head-on conflict.
Mr. Olenoff, I think we're all like-minded on this. VHB, our traffic engineer, will take the comments, and we'll have further exchange with Beta on this issue. And rest assured, we're all thinking the same thing. We're looking for, in general, what we were trying to engender here is, given our patient population, or even for an average person, minimum confusion, more directional certainty, and fewer choices where, that you're making in a moving vehicle. That's what we're going for here. We'll certainly confer with Beta on this, and perhaps if we can improve that, we're certainly glad to take a look at that.
The next part of there is where the two-way roadway that's outside of your area makes a sharp left turn into the, and it'll eventually be into the garage.
Mhm.
You have a stop line coming out, even though it's just a stop to make the turn. That's such a sharp corner, I'm not even sure two automobiles could fit around that. Should that consideration be given to lessening the sharpness of that curve?
Well, it's not an engineered drawing, and it's an attempt to show the general flows. All the geometry that we do end up with here would have to be consistent with turning radii, safe turning lanes in the same with the same idea as providing comfort that trucks taking the trash out will have enough room to maneuver.
So we're more still at a rather preliminary state in determining the traffic pattern. Yeah.
I'd like you to keep in mind that that's actually, that's NED. That's the NED parcel. So I can't speak to how how much that particular turn has been engineered. That's a question for Paul Sincata. And obviously, it's just what we've provided is simply the entrance location to our site. But in terms of the engineering of the road leading to it, that would be NED.
Right, but we can't permit one thing and then something else, and they have to fit together and work.
Right, and as
this is the
absolutely, and as mentioned, we will coordinate all of our drawings with what is provided by NED in order to make it work.
Go to the one has the garage in place. So my big concern here is in the garage, that rear entrance to the garage, you do have a sidewalk that comes immediately in front of the entrance of the garage, which I know is very dangerous. That's the kind of thing you'd see in Boston. Certainly it's the first one we'd have around here. But pedestrians have limited sight of cars coming out have limited sight. Someone walking along the sidewalk. We are starting with a clean slate here. We can do whatever we can to make this safe and friendly to pedestrians, and that is not. And well, I can tell you that I was recently in another city with my wife walking along a sidewalk, and we had a situation like that. We walked along, a car came shooting out of the garage, barely hit me and did hit my wife. She's still recovering. So I know how dangerous that is. So if we can avoid sidewalks going in front of a garage entrance like that, we should do that. The pedestrian, again, I know it's NEC, but when we get off the site, the sidewalks don't even line up to where the pedestrians go into the park, where that curve is on the end there. So there's still a lot of traffic considerations that need to be fitted together, and obviously we need to work with NED on that. Another subject is, and I mentioned this, is Paul still here, hiding away somewhere? Yeah. I mentioned TDM, Transportation Demand Management, and that would come up later when we get to buildings where I have more employees. Obviously, there might be like an even balance. I know if you go into a medical facility, there's always someone there working on it. So there's, and in any given time, I assume there'll be equal number of employees and visitors, but we will have a good number of employees here. And the question is, what kind of transportation demand management is provided?
Can I answer that question? So,
Yeah.
it is part of, there is a member of the partner staff that currently sits on the traffic. It goes to all of the traffic meetings, sits on the traffic board, I believe. And in addition, it is a part of the onboarding for this facility that the staff will be provided with all of the information regarding not only the trains, but also the buses, any other sort of public transportation that they would use to make their way to the building.
Well, could we be given information that you normally would get in this sort of thing, which is, what is your distribution now? How many employees, what percentage will be coming in single occupancy vehicles, carpooling, taking the train? And then what transportation demand measures would you employ? What would your goals be? So how would the single occupancy vehicle rate drop? And how does that translate into number of vehicles? Fewer vehicles that are coming to the site, and then how does that translate into number of parking spaces which you won't need? And then where can we, cut back on some of the parking spaces and have more open space or trees in various parts of the parking lot? That's a sort of way, that's a sort of transportation demand analysis that would normally be done in this sort of thing. And I think it's about time that we did that and we saw some of these results.
We will do a transportation analysis. We're happy to do that. Regarding the number of parking spaces, however, that is a code issue, and it is related to the size of the building and the number of staff that will be working in the building, as well as the patients, regardless of their mode of transport to the building.
Do you currently have more than is required in parking spaces? I thought I saw that somewhere. Where
We do. We're slightly above what's required.
right, so again, always, particularly if you have a garage, actually one of the things you didn't go over is how the parking spaces in the front would be utilized. Are they specifically for handicap spaces?
Yes, the parking spaces directly in front of the building are handicap spaces.
So all of them?
Yes,
Yeah.
except the ones.
On the left,
So
on that little,
yes, the ones that are directly up against the building are handicap. The 8 spaces that are across the drive aisle from phase 1, those are not. But those were. The assumption is that those will be used by the urgent care, which will be located in that phase 1. So it will be more of a short-term parking for the patients going to urgent care.
so what kind of use do you have at the urgent care? Are there ambulances coming in or people coming in that need to get close to the entrance to get in and out?
Urgent care is bumps and bruises and cuts and abrasions, and it's no what you're describing with an ambulance would be an emergent condition. Urgent cares don't, that's not their scope. The only time an ambulance would be on our site is if there were some emergent condition with a patient that needed to be taken to the hospital. So this will be a 911 building, if you will. And our patient population will be both for the urgent care and the primary and specialty care will be nothing that is ever requiring an ambulance unless there's somebody that needs hospital attention.
Well, you will have people coming in that, it's urgent for them, so they
We'll have
feel-
sick people there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we
So-
will.
So they don't wanna go up into the garage and find a parking space, they wanna get something real quick, or, and
I-
that's why you have those other parking spaces there.
Yeah, I think our service mentality is to leave the prime spaces for the patients always, and that the staff parks in the rear and the least desirable spaces to keep the ones closest to the front door open.
So how do you do that? How do you keep those spaces? Are they signed, you know? 15
They're not,
parking or something
we
like
don't
that?
generally assign spaces, we just the staff is instructed to follow the rules.
But how do you keep visitors who are coming for a regular doctor's appointment? How do you get them to go to the garage and leave those other spaces near the urgent care?
Well, you're speaking in the later phase, and we don't generally see the need to manage where a patient parks. That's an individual decision. It's usually the people that come earlier will park in the best spaces, and then when they leave, those spaces will be replaced. I may not be getting your.
Yeah, no, the urgent care is that, I mean, you're saying it's urgent, that will be in operation right away, correct?
Urgent care will be opening at perhaps a bit later, but at about the same time we open. And the hours of urgent care will be till 9 o'clock at night, every tentatively 7 days a week.
But if someone comes in and they feel they want to get in real quick, they'd be hoping that those, 8 spaces? On the top there would be available, that there's no one just parking for a long period of time there, so they would be available. And how do you manage that?
Frankly, it's not ordinarily an issue anywhere that we,
Pretty much,
in the buildings
there's
that
always
we
1
have.
or 2 spaces open for someone?
Yeah, I mean, people come and people go. The average duration of a visit may be about an hour, and then the space is turned over.
But you say reserved for urgent care in those spaces or something like that?
We haven't discussed it yet. We haven't felt the need to. It's something that we would look at as an operating improvement if we were to see bottlenecks.
Was there a consideration for shared parking through here as well?
We do have a shared.
Right, I mean, this whole strip here, I don't think you took account for this in your actual parking count, but this is obviously fairly distant from the Marriott, and I presume that would provide some extra capacity too.
Yes, we do have shared parking in that area that would service the urgent care. We didn't count it in our parking count in the effort to be a good neighbor, and we didn't want to overwhelm the Marriott parking, so that's why we did not include that in our parking counts.
Now,
Which-
but obviously someone would, if those 8 spaces were taken, they'd just go around the corner.
Correct, and the fact that we did not include that in our parking counts leads to us, as you put, being slightly overparked on sort of our site, and that's due to trying to be neighborly and not take up the Marriott spaces.
These spaces, this is a solid line, but this is a pathway through to spaces along here. So those spaces would be an opportunity, as you said, to get quick access to that door or to the check-in area at the primary care facility.
So one thing that's always, and I've pass on to other people. A lot of these drawings we're seeing are not engineering drawings. If we want to permit this, we need to have really solid engineering drawings in the end there that we can approve.
We have a full set of, I mean, we've got the full set of GMP drawings that are stamped for construction. They were not included. You have a set included in the PDR application. They are noted as not being for construction, and that was just due to the level of detail that was contained in them. However, we do have a full set now that that is for construction that we will provide.
You're done for now.
Yep.
Anyone else on the board have questions, comments?
Oh, just one that,
Decorations?
yeah, will that include a full landscaping detail? Okay.
Yes, sir.
I have some easy questions.
Go right ahead.
We love easy questions.
What's the, how does the staff get into the back parking lot? What's the idea?
Comes down to the back.
We're showing the further phase plan, but we can talk to that while we have it.
On phase one, they can come down, obviously, and go through here because the garage is not there. On phase two, our staff could come down the rear of the building to park back here. As we mentioned, this is shared parking. The staff will be informed not to park there so that it is available for urgent care.
So they don't pass through the garage, like in the phase two plan there, they would not, no one would be going in one entrance?
Ideally not. We don't really want it to be a throughway through there for safety reasons.
They could, but I don't think that's the best approach.
And they could also come by way of,
They could come on the train. They
no,
could
no,
come-
by the other road,
Yes, the Bridges way.
the bridges.
Which is over here.
And I think also looking at that front parking lot again that Steve was talking about, I just wondered if might be an opportunity to shift the oval. If you didn't need those 8 spaces, it might make it simpler, because I am concerned about all the flow, all those arrows that are going on at that intersection. And I know you've got 7 spaces over to the left in front of the Phase 2B building. And you've got the handicap spaces there. It seems like, to me, there might be an opportunity for more green space and maybe a simpler design there. But
One thing we had considered was the fact that we originally had this drive aisle as two-way. So right now it is currently spaced as a two-way. And thoughts sort of, we toss it about a bit, would be whether or not you wanted more pedestrian access, or whether this sidewalk should continue across to meet up with the park, or we could provide more green space here. So we're open to discussions on that. Again, as it was mentioned, this has gone in front of the fire chief with our consultants, and I know there are some questions, so I believe everybody has questions for that area, so we'll obviously be diving into.
I think you're reacting naturally, as you would expect, to the fact that we've created a drop-off area. A medical office building is very different than an office building, and it's really a must for patients being driven by a family member or friend to be able to drop that person off. It's more convenient, it's safer. So we're creating that circular movement there. We're enabling that so as to enable this drop-off. And that's, I think, part of the complication you're seeing. It's what we're trying to do there.
So what's the procedure for improving this situation? Members of the planning board and town planner will be talking to Beta, and Beta will be talking to you and working out some better traffic patterns here?
Yes, I would say that the fact that Beta has a couple of ideas of how, and suggestions, I would say probably a meeting outside of this group, again, like we did to further the architectural side of it, to meet, discuss. We obviously are going to take into account the recommendations from the fire chief as they have questions regarding, I believe there's a question on a turning radius, so that would be the next.
Any more easy questions, or you're all set? Okay.
The only question I have is the finished facade of the parking garage. Do we have any idea where that's going at this point? The finished facade, what's the parking garage gonna look like when it's done?
Well,
Other than the shape, what's the facade gonna look like?
well, we've committed to having some further disclosure on that with Beta. It'll be a concrete garage, but you can do a lot with concrete, and we still have to figure out what the face of the concrete's going to look like, and what the tint is as well.
And I have another procedural question. Is that somebody, you would, in the end, file a subdivision plan to be filed?
Mm-hmm.
And exactly how does that work, and how does that affect us? And you might know.
There will be a subdivision plan, and when NED makes a presentation in a few minutes, they'll talk about that in general terms, because they will be presenting the subdivision plan to you. It's a Form A subdivision plan. You'll see that we're not looking at it now, but Brigham Way is 50 feet wide, and it goes out to University Avenue, so it provides the requisite 50-foot frontage. It'll be a Form A subdivision that we frankly, consciously wanted to have this initial meeting with you all to have you familiar with the project, and I think based on your comments, we think it'd be appropriate to have the Form A submitted to you shortly. And that would go to your special counsel for review, and with his input, hopefully at our next meeting, you'd be in a position to endorse the Form A subdivision.
Okay, no problems with that, Dan?
So actually, maybe before you jump down, so someone made mention of an enabling plan. Is that going to be part of that same discussion, do you think?
Yeah, well, in a few minutes, I would expect that NED will be walking you through what they're proposing to do to complement our project, because they're certainly, when you were all doing the master plan revision a few weeks ago, one of your questions was, how does this all relate? And you had many questions with regard to the park, and certainly some of those questions have come up tonight. And so we're essentially, those are items that are beyond the scope of the applicant's responsibility in terms of even land control. And so NED is here tonight to walk you through how they're going to address those questions and have this all dovetail.
Okay, that's helpful. Thanks. All right.
And then as far as will the dovetailing also include a detailed timeline of the sequence of events?
The sequence, yes, exactly, yes, because that's certainly, in my mind, that's part of dovetailing, is that not only what will be done, but it'll be done in a complementary time frame. Certainly one of the questions that had been raised at the time of the master plan revision was that it seemed a little imprudent to build out the park only to have our phase 2 come along and destroy the park during, with all these construction vehicles in and out and all that sort of. So there is and I'm talking about the NED park at the top of the plan. So there's a sequencing that needs to happen for efficiency, but everyone is cognizant of the fact that at all times, certainly the applicant, Brigham and Women's, is acutely aware and desirous in its own goals of having the park in a presentable form and the entire development in a presentable form. I expect you want that. I can assure you Brigham and Women's wants it as much, if not more. And so there's a lot of steps that need to be coordinated here.
My last question for you, LEED certification. You mentioned that all the people doing this were all LEED certified experts, but what about the building itself? Would there be any LEED certification for it?
I can address that, but I think that do you want me to address that, or Brian?
At this point, it's not seeking certification, but we strive to meet every code mandate in a LEED qualified building.
Right, so could you give us eventually the equivalent LEED certification, if you did seek it, what it would obtain?
We could give you a draft checklist of the lead process. That's always contingent on whether they get credits or not, but give you a range of where the building will land.
Good.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'd endorse that. This won't be a LEED certified building. A medical office building is really not a great candidate for that. But there's certainly measures that we're taking related to energy and daylighting and such that are on the LEED checklist would certainly qualify, for LEED points. So we can commit to that as well.
And there was some mention about zero, what's the term? Net zero energy.
Net zero ready.
Yeah, net zero ready. What does that mean, or what does that imply? Does that mean the building is going to be prepared for solar panels on top, or what does that term mean?
At this point, we don't. We're not actively planning for any other energy conservation devices on the building. We're not planning for solar panels or anything like that. It doesn't pay. It doesn't pay. It doesn't break even.
So the term was in there, but it doesn't really.
I'm not sure what.
Really used.
The terminology as used states that our goal as responsible designers and environment is to lower the EUI of the building, and I always mess up, but the energy use index of the building, the lowest we can get it to open that possibility that could something happen in the future, you could offset it by power sources or by natural sources. That's our goal.
Yeah, if at some point technology changes and improves, we would certainly responsibly, in order to lower our costs, look at other measures. But they don't, at this point, they don't exist today economically.
All right, I just have a couple comments. Again, knowing that we have to go on to hear from New England Development, I'll try to be quick. I certainly share many people's concerns about the whole traffic flow thing, so it sounds like there'll be side discussions about that, and we'll expect to hear more about that at our next meeting. Hand in hand with that is understanding the pedestrian connectivity a little bit better. It seems a little, unfriendly to pedestrians to get out of the site and out to the rest of the development at this moment in time. The last part would just be, I'm not trying to harp on it, but I'm not convinced by the material palette here and the material palette on the screen. And I don't know if it's a screen resolution issue, but the images on the screen feel a lot warmer and a lot more inviting, particularly in this wood element. And I just feel like these samples may not be quite there. I mean, if there's something that's that evokes what we're seeing on the screen a bit more, that would be great to see that next time.
We have those are materials that we're trying to depict in there. Graphic
Yeah.
as you go from image to image
Right.
on each various monitor, it does change.
Yeah,
in the printing.
right. And then I guess, I don't know, maybe a silly question, but for these cementitious panels, will you see exposed fasteners when it's installed?
Yes, as the
Okay.
panel would be exposed fastener system,
Okay.
but the fastener will be the same.
Same color as the stuff. Okay. All right. I think everything else I've been yearning to say has been covered by others, so I will not go on at this point in time. So at this point, do we think we want to hear from NED, or do we want to hear from the public? I didn't know there was a secondary layer of presentation, so I guess we should hear from NED, because there's probably
probably.
corollary issues or questions that'll be set aside if we hear from them.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Abby, if we could just pull up the layout drawing, I think it's
Okay.
the 101.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay.
Paulson Cotter with New England Development. So what I'd like to do is just very briefly explain the scope of the enabling package. I think what we need to do in terms of the detailed design, most especially with the park, is really take into consideration a lot of the comments that have been presented this evening, as well as those comments that were made in Beta's review memo. And the intent is to have a full-blown enabling package for Beta's review in about a week's time. So what I really want to do is just explain
both the scope of what the enabling package is, and then we can address a couple of the comments that have been received tonight. So maybe just some, I'm going to bring them, maybe I'm not bringing the mic. Maybe I'm not bringing the mic.
You can pull it out of there.
Well, let me talk loudly a little. For the tape. So, one of the questions that was asked was the approval not required plan. So this plan shows the boundaries of what the Brigham and Women's parcel would be in red. And so as Ron had explained, it gains its frontage by way of essentially a 50-foot strip that encompasses the entrance drive, which is being referred to as Brigham Way. That 50-foot frontage is what's required in order to satisfy zoning for minimum lot frontage. And then the boundary, as you can see, goes around the Brigham parcel. You may recall from the hotel PDR site plan that one of the trays that's in front of the hotel parcel is a shared parking. So the Brigham and Women's boundary line actually splits the two parking trays that are constructed in front of the hotel. And then the second thing that's depicted on this layout drawing is the green boundary, which essentially encompasses what would be the work in the enabling package. So I think as most folks know, the entrance drive to the Brigham site and then the left-hand turn at the bottom of that drive over to the hotel is essentially complete. What remains on the entrance drive off of University Ave, the right-hand side, the sidewalk was never constructed, and then the street trees that would mimic the same kind of plantings on the Not Your Average Joe's side of that entrance drive just haven't been constructed yet on the side opposite the Not Your Average Joe's. So there's a little green leg of scope that would be part of the enabling package on that right-hand side coming in from University Ave. Then it captures the entire park area that extends from Brigham Way down to Bridges Way, and then it captures the part of the T driveway that reaches over and connects with the hotel site. That's essentially the limits of the enabling package. What you'll see in the development of the plans and the engineering plans are very developed for the enabling package. There's a landscape drawing that's also in the preliminary stages, which I think where we've gone on pretty long this evening, I think we're better off doing some fine-tuning coordination, getting our pedestrian connections with the Brigham site to align within the park. But the intent of the park area is to have really a naturalistic flow of pathways through the park. You may be able to discern from this picture there are varying widths. There are smaller pathways that come off of the main pathways that create gathering areas, sitting areas. It will use mounding and planting to buffer from parking areas to either side of it. There's been a lot of the conversation has related to the staging of the construction of the park, and what's envisioned is that portion of the park that fronts on the Brigham property would be constructed by the time Brigham opens. The southern portion of the park that fronts on the future residential parcel, right now the thinking is that the pathway that brings you all the way down to Bridges Way will be constructed, but the portion of the park that's on the residential side of that pathway would be deferred. So the planting and the final landscaping of everything to the east of the pathway that connects you down to Bridges would be deferred so that it wouldn't be ruined through the construction of the residential parcel. And again, limits of construction staging and limits of work based on a construction staging plan tied to both the Brigham development as well as the residential development can be incorporated into the plans that we're developing right now. And the other elements that'll be included in the enabling packages, the subsurface infiltration field that'll accommodate the impervious surfaces from the future commercial development that is above the park on this plan, that subsurface field is going to be incorporated into the park area, which will leave, and I think, in fact, we had talked about this in the master plan modification. It really leaves a lot of flexibility for the development of the balance of the land that is fronting on University Ave. So the basic construction sequence of the park area will be get the subsurface field in place, get the plumbing to that subsurface field out to the areas that it needs to be out from beyond the limits of the park, then finish the park on top.
So you're building half the park now?
I think we're building probably 3/4 of the park. So it's the entire park across the front of the Brigham, and then the area that's just to the east of this walkway, opposite the residential parcel, I think is the area that's most logically left out to be done at the time that the residential development is completed.
But you would build that one pedestrian walkway all the way through?
Correct. I think the idea would be all of the pedestrian walkway shown on this plan would be constructed with the exception of that connection to the specific connections to the residential piece. And then the connection points that we expect to really tie down and coordinate with the Brigham plan are those that are tied to the crosswalks in the main four-legged intersection, and those crosswalks that are shown near the garage. And you know, at least preliminarily, those connections are shown on this layout. And sort of not surprisingly, I think this park will build on the plant material palette that's been used in the other open spaces within the development. We intend to use the same lighting fixture. We intend to use the same furnishings. The materials will be consistent. We're imagining that the walks will be predominantly concrete walks, and areas where there are opportunities to create interest. So this central area, for instance, gathering area, is envisioned to be predominantly hardscape, likely to be either stamped concrete similar to the plaza area between Target and Wegmans, possibly incorporating some pavers. A little bit more formal spaces where users within the village area can gather and sit. So a little bit denser with benches, seating walls possibly, and a little bit heavier on the planting than if you compare it to the park area, the Gateway Park, or the Meadow Park down behind the Dedham Westwood Water District building. And again, we hope to have in a week or so's time a package that we can get in for staff as well as Merrick's team's review.
So we'll see a subdivision application
And
in front of us probably around the same time we see these guys
Right.
again for the Brigham.
I mean, and again, the idea here is we wanted to be certain that there was nothing that came out of the site plan aspect review of the application that might necessitate moving a property boundary. We don't see anything right now in that regard, so you can anticipate that the A&R plan to create the Brigham lot will look like that red boundary.
Well, what if they manage to get the layout more efficient and you don't need that two-way roadway entirely into that, in your area outside of theirs, and you can push that, maybe halfway into the Brigham area by being more efficient about the traffic distribution, and how would that be handled?
There, I expect that the property line would stay in the same location, and it just would increase. It would increase green space. It would shift pavement limits around.
But that wouldn't be a problem as
It
far as
wouldn't.
I'm concerned.
Correct.
Would it be a problem for Brigham? All right, we'll have to work that one out. But I bet I could, because as you can see, it's pretty wasteful having two-way traffic there and then another parallel traffic on the Brigham property, and if they could be combined in some way and have more green space, that would be desirable.
And to speak to the earlier discussion of the, whether there's adequate radii to get into that garage or not, we will be taking a look at that as well. It's been designed for passenger vehicles. It's not intended to accommodate truck traffic. The fire department, in some of the reviews that have taken place to date between VHB and Tetra Tech, with Deputy Chief Reardon, the fire department's not looking to access. Well, they can't get into the garage structure. The clearance isn't provided, so that's not a route that they would desire to go. So we believe that the way the layout is presented, it accommodates the vehicles it needs to. But we'll be double checking that, and then we can review it with Merrick's group.
That tight turn, just for automobiles, is very unusual. Not something you'd normally see.
It's not too bad, Steve. It's more like a street corner. I mean, it's very slow.
Well, without the three other three corners, that's...
Well, it's just like a right turn onto, from one street to another. You just got to go very slow. But it would seem that a radius could be designed to fit appropriately. It may not be that one, but I think something can be done.
And there is some benefit to slowing vehicles down there.
Right, but the pedestrians have to cross there, and maybe a raised crosswalk right at that point would also slow them down.
Yep.
So more to come, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, if we've heard from all of our various presenters, and if there are no more, are there any more board or staff commentary at this point? Okay, I guess we'll open this up to public comment. If there's anyone in the audience from the general public who'd like to approach the podium. Don't. Oop.
Hi, Paul Kelly, 107 Willard Circle. As a patient of the Brigham, I think, and this is my opinion, the green space near the circle, forget about it. You need big space when patients come in. You look at Foxborough, look at downtown. It's very crowded. You need all the space you can get for drop-off. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other takers? Okay. At this point, so I guess we probably entertain a motion to continue this. This is a public hearing, correct?
It's not technically a hearing, it's
Okay.
a public meeting,
Public
but you
meeting.
should continue it. I think your next meeting's May 23rd, if that allows enough time for the applicant. We have started some responses here to review and to respond. We would need time for peer review to review, and then also for board members to review. So
Yeah.
if you can do it within the next week or so, that would,
Sure.
2 weeks until the next meeting.
Does that seem reasonable to
Seems
you
reasonable
guys?
to us.
Okay.
Would we be able to get comments prior to both the boards as well as peer review comments prior to that meeting, so we can address them?
We'll try our best, I guess.
Yeah, I think we gotta take a look at the material. Paul had just mentioned the enabling plan being about a week away, so I think at a minimum we'd be able to give you feedback on a substantial amount of stuff. Maybe it's not like closure of the letter, for example, but I think that there could be a very productive meeting in a couple of weeks, even to discuss things like the entrance and just resolving that.
Looks like we might have some more comments.
Hi.
Hi, Nora Loughnane, Director of Community and Economic Development. As Trevor knows, we had an informal subcommittee who worked with consultants and with the development team to get to the point we're at now. I think it would be advisable to have a formal subcommittee continue to look at these plans with the consultants between now and the next time you meet. I think it may be more productive than meeting with the full board on the 23rd. I think it would be more productive to have a subcommittee meeting with staff and consultants before that, and actually go to your first meeting in June for a board meeting. I think that way we could get most of the issues resolved and come back to you with
You'd like
plans
that?
you can approve.
All right. That
Okay.
sounds fine, yeah.
Okay,
and
so
our
the first meeting in June is June 13th.
13th.
I think Tuesday, June 13th, in this room.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to continue the university. Sure,
Apologize.
go right ahead.
Is there any possible way that, because frankly, we're desirous to get in the ground, and as was alluded to earlier, we're already at 100% construction on drawings, because the desire is to use this construction season. So is there any possible way, and that comes with a big please, to possibly have a subcommittee appointed? I think that's a wonderful idea. But then still target May 23rd?
It's tight.
It is.
Understood.
It's tight. I mean, it's only 2 weeks away, unless we can
Yeah.
meet right away, and then if you continue it to the 23rd, if it doesn't look like you could make that meeting, then you could continue it further to your June meeting. I mean, we'd have to meet right away and review, and you'd have to
There's a
revise
substantial amount of
plans.
design work to be done. I mean, comments to go back and forth, and to revisions to what we've seen on the screen, et cetera. I don't really feel like 2 weeks is enough to achieve that, especially if we embed a subcommittee meeting within it.
Well, we think we can be responsive, and I'm confident that we could have a meaningful exchange with these guys.
Mhm.
So I think we're up to it if you enable it.
Okay. I mean, I guess I'm not quite sure. Is a decision in my hands, or is it in our hands? Like, how do we proceed here? I'm getting kind of mixed signals. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't imagine a couple more weeks would completely trump the construction season for you guys. In the interest of getting a more complete review together.
I do have just a quick question.
Sure, go for it.
Part of it is sort of along the idea of how this portion of the PDR is put together, and the fact that we phased the buildings. To address Ron's comment, we are at 100% construction documents for phase 1, which is that initial 30,000 two-story building, and that's really what we want to that's what our goal is, to get that out of the ground so we can be closed in before the winter, and be able to move forward with construction. So maybe, I don't know if there's some way we could have the goal on the 23rd to address the circulation in the front as well as just phase 1, so that we can continue moving forward and get those phase 1 drawings in for a permit, and so that they can be sort of in process of being approved or being looked at, and comments from the other departments. We obviously realize that our phase 2 is not at the same stage as our phase 1.
Yeah, I don't think we're really talking about phase 2 in terms of this review anyway. I mean, I just think there's enough meat on the bone in terms of the circulation issues and understanding the enabling, which I think is pretty clear already in our heads. But I mean, if that's the desire, we really have no other meeting. We really have no other meeting between the 23rd and what was the June date? The 13th.
June 13th, yep. Yeah, that's 3 weeks in between.
Yeah.
So Dan, can we break this down into smaller parts and give decisions on pieces of this?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there's lots of language in the bylaw about phasing of different elements of the project, and we can condition any of that, in any way that you would like.
Okay.
So we could even permit the building even though we haven't decided upon the final traffic pattern in front of it?
I think you could, yeah.
Well, why don't we do that then? Try that approach.
Okay.
And then rather than be rushed getting the traffic layout just right, we can, I don't see any problems with the building itself.
No, nothing that couldn't be dealt with that.
Flexibility, because
Sure.
that would allow us to keep construction schedule.
Okay.
And obviously Dan and I can talk about that offline and
Okay.
figure out the mechanics.
So it might be 3 phases. We can do the building itself, the traffic around it, and then the phase 2 part of it.
But our thought would be over a series of weeks, not over a series of
Right.
months or years.
But you want fewer weeks and then a few more weeks is what we're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
Obviously, our goal leading this meeting is to dive heavily into the traffic. The traffic circulation at the front of the site.
Yep. Okay, well, that seems okay to me. I mean, I guess we can, Mike, do you want to continue your?
Do we need a
fini-
motion?
I don't know, we
need a
started
motion
one.
to- Well, we need a motion to continue
Yeah.
to our next meeting.
Okay.
Right.
All right, so I motion we continue the University Station Development Area B Brigham and Women's Hospital Project review to our next meeting on May the 23rd here in this room
7 o'clock.
at 7 o'clock. Thanks for pointing that out, Steve.
Gotta get these
I'll
motions this
second
way.
that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion by the board? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? 0? Okay, thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you.
You know, I thank you so much.
So I need a motion to go to the bathroom?
Bathroom break. I've been asking for this. Yeah. Short break.
Yeah, short
5 minute,
break.
just declare a 5-minute break.
Yeah. We're gonna take a 5-minute break.
These meetings go to 11 and I get home and.
Nature break.
How you holding up, Janice? How you holding up? Mid's here if you need them, babe. No, crank that puppy up.
Too. It's like.
All right. What am I at here? Trevor, what are we jumping to next? Summer Street?
Summer Street, yeah.
Summer Street.
That's kind
Good night, thank you.
Thank you.
There's really not much else other than that.
It's all those little things that keep us here.
2 hours over there.
I'm surprised. Once I heard NED was coming, I'm like,
Thought that was gonna
God,
be-
here we go.
Some good discussion, though. I just don't know how we figure out how do we get more green space over there. It seems like that's. I'm gonna take a drive over to Not Your Average Joe's to they talked about the landscaping there, the trees.
Get a bigger bookshelf. I look forward to turning this stuff in, not taking it home.
Tomorrow's Wednesday.
Yeah, it's getting a little much here.
You know how it goes.
Yeah.
July 1st, it'll be 100 degrees. Don't worry.
3. Who picks the subcommittee? Is it already? Oh, that's good. I hear you.
Yeah, I go probably. I was just Nora and I were just talking about probably him and I probably could represent.
Sounds great.
So we can get all your comments in there. Okay, next item on the agenda, 40 Summer Street Special Permit Public Hearing. It's a proposal for a 500-foot-long common driveway to serve 3 single-family residences on the west side of Summer Street, starting at 8:20 promptly, according to my agenda. Is there someone here from the proponent? Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Paul Broderick. I'm with Site Design Professionals, and I'm here this evening representing Mr. Sullivan, who's on my right here, and his desire to construct a 3-lot common drive subdivision off the westerly side of Sumner Street, right just shy of the Westfield Street intersection. Excuse me, Phil. There's already one house out there on what is described as Lot 8, so we're proposing to build 2 new homes. They are designed to access over the same common driveway, which is a driveway that is currently in existence, but it's only about 10 feet wide right now, and it only accesses one house at this time. So what we have laid out here are 3 individual lots. Each of them that comply with the necessary zoning area and frontage. In fact, they're well in excess of what is necessary. This is a 6-acre parcel. Lot 9 is over 3 acres. Lot 8 is almost 2 acres, and Lot 7 is 1 acre. The zoning is single-family residence C, which requires 40,000 square feet. They're all in excess of that. And they all have in excess of 125 feet of frontage. So these 3 lots stand on their own. And that's important because we're not building a roadway to create frontage. All we're doing is building a driveway to create access. We have 3 choices as we see it in the development of this land. Before you, we have an application for a shared driveway. We could also just simply bring back the an A&R plan to create these 3 lots. We're trying not to do that rather than create driveways, which would be somewhat circuitous coming off of the main street to get up to these relatively higher locations. It could be done. We could certainly engineer them to work, but we're trying to do it off of one common drive. What we're most concerned with is that the regulations for this driveway don't come very close to what we would consider a roadway. What we're being asked to do is a 20-foot roadway, and what we're proposing to do is something less than that, say a 16-foot roadway with 2 gravel shoulders on each side, with no formal drainage system, but use the gravel or the crushed stone for the driveway's drainage. The wider this driveway or so-called roadway becomes, the more it begins to look like a subdivision street, and that's what we're trying to avoid. If we build 20 feet of paved driveway, we're only 2 feet away from a subdivision road, and a subdivision road with drainage gives us a 5-lot subdivision. So we're trying not to do that. We're trying not to go in that direction. So what we ultimately end up doing here is basically up to you folks. If we can get the relief we're looking for to downsize this, make it look more like a common drive rather than a subdivision road, then this is what we would prefer to build. But we're going to need a significant amount of relief from you, from your subdivision rules and regulations, because we're not building a subdivision road, we're building a common drive. And I suspect it's probably for many of you, this is the first time you've seen this. It was approved back in 2006, looked just like this. Since then, the shared driveway regulations have been revised and increased the roadway width in particular. You also have a set of regulations for a subdivision lane, which can be applied here as well. Subdivision roadways and lanes are roads that are built to create frontage to carve lots off of. We're not doing either one of them. So I'm just trying to, I'm trying to be very explicit about this. We're trying to build a common drive, not a subdivision road. So we would be seeking relief from a long list of requirements in your subdivision regulations. For instance, we wouldn't want to be doing a photometrics plan for this property. Lighting is something you'd simply do with 10 or 12 foot high lamp posts coming up the driveway. A photometrics plan we would consider to be overkill for this site. We understand for safety reasons, oftentimes fire departments like to see 20-foot roadways. We can overcome that if we put a 16-foot roadway in here, which is wide enough for 2 cars to pass, and we give you a 2-foot gravel or stone shoulder on each side, which would be helpful with the drainage situation as well. We don't want to build a formal drainage system with catch basins and detention basins and the like. We want this roadway to shed off into the shoulders and go back into the ground. This was originally laid out with 100-foot radius curves in it, which duplicate the driveway that's out there right now. They mimic that. That's something that's allowable by waiver under your lane requirements, which we would want to employ. We would like to go with the lane requirements for 9% driveway. Right now, there's 2 sections in here and in here that exceed that 9% under the driveway construction layout. We have a profile which shows that it can be done with an 8% driveway, which was what we had done back in 2016. It looks like this. So you've got a cut area here where the first knoll is in the driveway, a fill area in the center, and a cut at the top. A 9% driveway would make that a little less severe. That's something we would like to do. But it's in your lane regulations, so it's allowable. We have sanitary sewer for the site, which has been brought off of Sumner Street. That's a gravity sewer manhole right there. We're proposing 3 individual force mains for these 3 different house lots. We're also going to tap the water main with 3 individual 1.5-inch water services, 1 to each of these houses. It's pretty straightforward in that regard with regards to infrastructure. It's simply a driveway. That's where we're headed with it, and we're thinking if we're going to have to go from what was a 14-foot driveway, which was sloped all in one direction toward the shoulder, we'd probably go with the 16-foot driveway, 2-foot gravel shoulders, crown the street, let the runoff run from the center of the driveway into the stone gutters at the edge so that it doesn't follow the roadway all the way down through at any one point and tend to run off into Sumner Street. Give it every opportunity we can to leach back into the soil as it's going down the driveway along the edges. So I know that's a lot for you to grasp at once, and you're going to want to take this into consideration. But I think it would really behoove each of you, if you're not familiar with this existing driveway, that you go out and take a look at it. It's 10 feet wide right now, and picture it twice as wide. And see if in your mind that's still a driveway or a roadway. It also has a historic emergency egress out through onto Westfield Street. This home right here has rights of access to and fro on that driveway. These 2 homes will not. They have a historic access over that roadway. So why that's important, because the fire, first responder, emergency responders will be coming up this driveway, and they'll do whatever they need to do, and they don't need to back down. They don't even need to turn around. They can go right out through that way. That's historically it's been there for many, many years. And these folks here have a right to use it, so does the fire department. That's really it. That's all I have to present to you. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to respond.
So what was the original permit that we gave you? Exactly was that? Was that a shared driveway, and what's the current lot layouts right now?
The only thing different between this plan and that plan is we made the driveway 2 feet wider, and we rearranged these internal lot lines. It was actually a little easier to see on this plan. These red lines are the interior lot lines.
As exists right now?
As we've proposed them.
So what exists right now? It's just one big lot?
Yes, it's one lot.
Okay,
That was never recorded, was it? No. It's just one lot.
I have an aerial photo. Do you want?
No, it just, so what was our decision? What kind of decision was it?
It was a shared driveway
Shared
special
drive.
permit, with a slightly different lot configuration, and I believe the driveway was 14 feet wide.
Mm-hmm.
The home placements were completely different.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for your presentation. I believe we have Phil Parody here, who probably has some commentary for us.
I assume that's why Phil is here.
Here are some pictures of the included in the. So I did get a chance to go out there, and as you see in some of the pictures there, and confirm that yes, it's a driveway about 10 or 11 feet wide, a little windy. There's a steep section at the very beginning. Up. It does look like the best opportunity to provide access to 3 houses as a driveway to the house, to the existing house. If that was going to be directly from Summer Street, it would have to be fairly significantly steep, in excess of 15%, because it rises pretty quickly there, and as well as the middle house on the lot. I understand the aspect of a driveway width. However, I would defer to the fire department in terms of access. We did a fairly extensive work up with the last planning group about small developments like this and developing a reduced pavement width for a small lane. I guess I'm not, it could be further reduced if you had drivable shoulders. That was proposed. But the fire prevention regulations do recommend a 20-foot wide access. The house is fairly, especially the houses are fairly far from the road, and we'd want to make sure that there's adequate fire protection. So basically, I do like the innovative way of the drainage system. I think that's a good way of dealing with it in this situation. So, and we would just want to confirm the site distance. I don't think that's an issue, but we just like the measurements on it. And then I think there is one driveway that goes through the buffer zone. I think that could be relocated outside the buffer zone. And I think that's
How would you recommend relocating that driveway?
Just go to the, where that circle
The
thing is.
cul-de-sac and.
Yeah, as
circle
opposed to
and
going
cross
through the,
circle.
yeah.
There's not, I haven't been up there in a long time. Is there something in the center of that circle, like a well or a brick? There's a tree there? So are you proposing to remove that tree and put gravel there or something?
Right, we'll make it passable. Not nice, because the fire department would get in the way of emergency responders, but in that particular plan, it's showing it being gravel.
So what size tree is there now?
Probably we could turn. We're not showing any tree in the center, so I can't tell you.
But it's a old, substantially large tree?
No.
It's big, so it's something worth saving? So is it, can a fire truck get around that tree?
We're gonna put together what we refer to as a swept plan analysis, which shows how the fire apparatus can get through the subdivision. We'll provide that to you.
This is a
Oh, okay.
2010 aerial view.
So naturally, I was part of that decision.
Naturally.
And so in that decision also, we didn't change the grade of the driveway at all, correct?
They maintained 8%, so there was a cut and fill.
There was a cut and fill, but that didn't involve what, the question I have is, how many trees, each thing that we do, how many trees would have to go because of that? So the object, I think one of the most important things here is to do this and preserve the most trees. So the cut and fill to, which we approved before, how many trees did that involve? How many?
I don't think it'd involve more than a few trees.
Mhm.
You can see.
So if we do that same cut and fill, I mean, in other words, I'm asking, what's the matter with the way we did it before? And if the driveway needs to be slightly bigger, because we like that slightly. And-
It's a completely different plan.
Yeah, I realize that.
All right, we'll do a little public commentary after these guys get done. Okay, thank you.
I mean, we generally, we want something 18 feet, which is 16 feet paved and 1 foot gravel on each side to get the 18.
When you revisited, when you updated your subdivision rules and regs last year? When you updated your subdivision rules and regs last year and you adopted this lane policy, you put it in 20 feet of pavement width and then 1 foot of gravel shoulder on each side. So 22 level
But this
total.
is not a subdivision, this is just a shared driveway. And what does our shared driveway regulation say? I haven't.
Doesn't say.
actually-
We don't have
It doesn't
specifications
say.
in the shared driveway. No.
Right, so if this is just, so we don't even have to grant a waiver for, the shared driveway just talks about, it doesn't set any parameters for grades and for width on shared driveways?
Not in the bylaw, no,
Not
but
in
it
the bylaw, but
refers
what
to the
about our rules and regs?
subdivision rules and regs,
No,
and
no,
not in,
No, the special permit for shared driveways rules and regs. Does that say anything about it? 'Cause I haven't, unfortunately, I didn't look at that.
I don't believe so, not,
Nothing definitive, no dimensions.
No, they're not.
yeah.
So,
So this driveway was designed exactly after 2006 plan. Same location, same pitch in the road, grade.
We located all the trees along the driveway of this shared drive. It looks like about 6 will have to come down to make it 20 feet wide.
yeah. So my question is, the planning board approved that shared driveway before, and, what has changed in the meantime that we can't approve almost the same thing, with the difference here only being that some of the houses are relocated.
Yeah, the A&R lot layout did not work before, and they couldn't, the driveway went right through the middle of both of the lots that were created before, and they weren't marketable, and couldn't sell them.
Yeah. So this is a better layout because each one has its own lot.
Right, we're just relotting, that's all.
Yeah, that's all. That was the big improvement.
That's all we're doing. Yeah.
And was there one house in the back there? Do we happen to have that,
The house-
original permit, drawing?
The original permit?
Yeah, the original drawing.
It was in your packet, I don't.
The original one?
It's the original decision,
Yeah.
I think there's a drawing at the back.
There's my signature right there. There. Yeah. Imagine that. Oh, right, I looked at this, and the problem is, we didn't really locate the houses. We just.
Right, it's just the lot
You just had the
lines.
lots, and we didn't put the houses on, yeah, that's. Yeah. So, now that we see where the houses are and where the driveways are, I think it makes things more definitive. We can more easily make a decision. So there's just one cut, one fill, didn't involve many trees, and that gave us a nice a grade that was acceptable to the fire department. And the tree, at the time, the tree was going to remain in the middle of the circle. So the question is, can a fire truck easily get around there? We decided that was, yes, they could back then. Has something changed since then?
Nothing's changed, but we'll produce a plan showing the fire truck passing through the
Yeah.
property. We're not trying to turn them around.
No.
Go out,
You don't need to,
right
yeah.
back out the emergency
Yeah.
way.
Right. So if you can show that the fire truck can get by the tree without removing the tree, then we can keep that tree. And I see no reason why, it's a driveway for three. We approved it back then as a driveway for three houses. And nothing much has changed. I don't see why we can't pretty much approve the same thing,
Right.
unless there's some other change we can put. Maybe we can make it a little bit wider. Again, you're saying how many feet?
They're asking for more footage, right? That's what this permit is.
Comments afterwards, I see.
So how many,
The
it's 10 feet wide now.
plan that we submitted has 14 feet with two-foot gravel shoulders.
So things all the way up to 16 feet, 10?
18 feet.
18 feet.
Oh, 18, 16 and 8, okay.
Exactly what was approved before.
All right, so the major change is that you updated your subdivision rules and regs and created this lane policy after further discussion with the fire department about what they were finding in town at other locations. And they had looked at areas in town where they may have had difficulty in getting around these cul-de-sacs, especially when there's landscaping. If you recall, in I think 2015, I think Trevor and Steve were on the board, the Far Reach Road subdivision, that was a full subdivision, but for 3 house lots. And they recommended and you approved the cul-de-sac, had landscape in the middle. It was 22 feet of pavement with gravel on the inside of the cul-de-sac in case they had to make a tight turn in there. So the fire department is now recommending 20 feet width of pavement.
On roads or driveways?
Subdivision.
Really for
that's a real
subdivisions, but
subdivision.
it's for access in case they have to get up there and access these houses that are, at least now, one of them, the one shown in the proposed lot 9 is a lot further back. Another comment I forgot was the police department had just requested that there be a sign out front on Summer Street to show the new addresses so they can, on the street and then also at the drive, so in case there's an emergency.
And just so I'm understood, just from what Phil said, I mean, so if the fire department would prefer 20 of
feet.
pavement and how much shoulder?
1 foot on either side.
1 foot on either side. And does a 1 foot shoulder adequately provide for the water infiltration that you'd want? I mean, does it matter, or as long as it's there, or?
As long as it's there and deep enough to absorb the runoff from the street would be sufficient.
Right. But that stipulation, because this isn't a subdivision, it's not necessarily written in stone that we're to do that for this particular application, is what we're saying, right? Which is what you're saying.
Yeah, a shared driveway doesn't require you to meet subdivision standards.
Right.
And obviously, you have this driveway that gets up to one house now. If there were fires here
Right.
now, they'd have to get up there. Doubtful all 3 houses would catch fire at once or something, you know.
Probably not.
Probably not.
You've got a pretty good separation between them.
So, it's just 3 times as likely to have a fire truck needed to go up there as before. But it's the same road, we can make it up 1, it's the same road they'll have to go up. So I have no problem with the application just for the shared driveway, with a slightly wider road.
Will we allow public commentary before we?
Oh, yeah. you
Oh, yeah,
know, I'm
definitely.
this-
Yeah, we usually just try to let us have our back and forth before we open up to
The only
public
thing I
comment.
noticed that we didn't do back at the angle of the, the bottom of the driveway. There's not much of a leveling area, and the angle, it's nice to have the driveway meet at 90 degrees. So I think if you just cut off one corner there, that would force the cars to exit at 90 degrees and have good view.
The entrance, as you see it, is much wider than it needs to be.
Yeah.
And in some regards, that's good, because people can get in and out much easier. But we could realign it a bit if you want more. As I see it, emergency responders are coming from this direction, and going in here, so that angle makes it a bit easier for them.
Are you speaking to lot 9 for the 90-degree angle? Is that
No,
what
no,
you're-
any of the cars coming down from the 3 lots, you want the car to come down and hit that street at a 90-degree angle. And maybe you're doing it already, because you know,
Because
you want
you
to
have extra
see.
space.
Yeah, and you want to get the maximum visibility. So maybe people just do that automatically, and you don't have to change the road to get them to do that. That was the only thing I was asking is,
That is a common practice.
yeah. So leaving the end of that road as is, even though it doesn't look like, even though it looks like it's at an angle, it works fine the
We'll
way it
take
is.
another look at it, we'll put a template on it and see if they can square off with the way it is, with 2 cars.
So if you were to hypothetically, if you went to 20 feet of pavement, what would you, without seeing a landscape impact plan or something, some kind of comparison of before and after in terms of tree removal, how much more tree removal would you anticipate
We're looking at about 6 trees right
right now? And if you add another 4 feet, whether it be gravel or pavement?
now. It doesn't matter whether it's gravel or pavement, if it's
I know.
20 wide, it's the same number of trees.
Sure, but so 6 now, and if you went to 20 feet if you added another 4 feet to the thing,
If you went to 22 feet instead of 20,
yeah, or
you'd probably grab a couple more trees.
yeah.
You're just from that photo, you can see.
Yeah, it's pretty sparse already, I think, along the path, it seems. But
Now, another thing we could do is you could try to make the street wider, but just narrow it when it goes by trees, so you don't have to remove those trees. That'll give, you don't have too many, the fire trucks aren't gonna be passing each other on this road very much. And
except when all 3 houses are on fire.
And
then
if there are,
might
but
be
they're
all
always
3.
going in one direction, and then later they'll be going in the other direction. If it could be, sections could be slightly wider, but do it so that the trees are preserved, is that a possibility?
Well, if we're gonna use grass pavers as shoulders, then we can go around the trees with those pavers. You'd still have a uniform paved.
Right. Yeah, but but
14
the trees
foot
would be right up against the paved part, which is fine. And that's just something to consider.
I'm sorry. So are we talking about gravel shoulders or pervious or like grass pavers? You just said grass
Use
grass
either one.
pavers.
We can use,
Okay.
we can use grass pavers for the shoulder areas,
Mhm.
or we can use crushed stone.
Crushed stone, yeah.
Or we can use gravel.
Right.
Say grass.
Any of those would support the
trucks. Yeah.
Grass pavers, you mean what do you put in those,
They have soil plugs inside the brick.
Yeah.
The grass goes up through the brick.
that's the brick.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Are there any other thoughts from the board?
So you could do, no matter what you use, you could do the same thing, have the pavement fit between the trees and then
We could,
and
because
the extra area
it
beyond.
wouldn't look odd with the shoulder going around the tree.
Right.
Because the pavement would maintain a uniform width.
So that might be a compromise.
Are there any other comments from the board, or are we?
So, you want to make a decision on, I mean, I've already got comments from people, but.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's always nice to go out and view these things.
Right.
And I was out there, but that was many years ago, so I'm doing this all from memory. But I do recall that it's worth trying to preserve this driveway as much as we could.
Yep. Yep.
I just have one question. The right-of-way driveway in the back of the lot that goes to, I believe, Gillis property, does that exist, or that is strictly just a right-of-way?
It exists.
It exists. Is it gated?
Yes. Gated right here.
And who controls that gate?
These folks do.
It's not locked.
It's not a lock.
The gate is not locked now. And then once it gets beyond there, it's a pretty easy way for the fire truck to get out, because it straightens out quite a bit.
And is that paved through and through, all the way?
All the way to Westfield?
No, I think it's gravel.
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 It's gravel?
But it's, yeah, it was, the last time I looked, it was in very good shape. Is it still in good shape? It's paved now?
Let's see.
It's always been. I seem to recall gravel.
It's hard to tell. Can't tell.
It's on the property line, close to the property line.
All right. Well, anyway, we think it's in good shape, right? So, okay. Okay, I guess I'd be interested to hear from the public, if there's no other staff or board comment.
My name is Michael Gillis, and my wife and I, Julie, and our 3 children live on that easement that they refer to as historical road. It's not. It's an easement for one house, not 3. It's 10 feet wide. It's very steep, and it's not exactly good access for the fire department. In fact, since the current owner's been there, from the rotary circle there, which is about 400 feet to the lot line, and then about 300 feet down to our driveway where it turns into our house, it's a combination of about 700 feet, is inaccessible approximately 4 months a year because it's not plowed. So to use it as an access road for the police and the fire is a fool's errand. And that's why when we were here 12 years ago, and Mr. Allman, if you were on that board, what you approved was not what you see there, but something completely different. The fire department at that time, which was acquiesced by and assented to by the owner, was that they would put in an 18-foot road with a 38-foot circle so that the fire trucks would have the ability to go around that circle. Now, I understand.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but could you just speak into the microphone?
I understand that those changes may have changed a little bit, but the safety aspect is the same. In addition to which, the plans here call for making 3 houses use an access road to the police for 1 easement, so it's an overburdenment of the easement. When you passed this last time, the owner of the property agreed and had his engineer write a letter to you, which is part of the record, and I'll just read part of it, that Chief Scoble has requested that the common driveway be widened to 14 feet of pavement with 2 feet crushed stone shoulders on either side of the pavement. It was the chief at that time who requested that the circular driveway, the circle go in where currently it is now, and turned back down so that there wouldn't be an overburdening of the easement on the property. It was requested and written into your decision that that fence be put in and that it be locked. It's never locked. Every time I walk up and shut it, not locked, but closed. And it says right in your decision that that will be closed and only open for emergency vehicles. It's open every time that we close it, it opens again. If you look at your decision from 12 years ago, the owner was to install speed bumps between the circle and the easement. None of that has ever gone in, none of it has ever been put in. At that time, as part of your decision, if you read it, what was aesthetically most pleasing and what was the best to keep the antique and historic nature of Summer Street was to have the 3 lots, as you can see them sort of drawn there. There were going to be 3 houses right in a row, the current house and the 2 others right along Summer Street. That house in the back was never proposed. It's completely different from the original plan. That presents several problems. The first problem is that it's closest to the wetlands, and you're taking one that would be right along Summer Street and be part of the roadway before we go up to the circle, and there'd be the least amount of disturbance because there'd be no change in the road. All it would be a widening of the driveway and a widening of the circle for safety reasons, for emergency vehicles, and then you'd have the 3 homes right along Summer Street. Now you'll have 2, then you'll have a space, and then you'll have a 3 that you can't see as you get around the corner to Westfield Street. The problem with that housing there as well aesthetically is that it's, unlike where if it were put up where it was proposed before, when it was agreed upon by all the parties, it's an eyesore to our house, to our neighbor's house, to the next house, and to the abutters behind that who can get up here and speak to it themselves. When that 3rd house was up on the road, what you can't see in the topography is that there's a big hill by the rotary there, so that so when you put the houses 1, 2, 3 on Summer Street with the shared driveway coming up behind there where it already exists, so you don't have to change it, you just have to widen it. That dips down so that it's not seen by the other people, the other abutters there. But the first and foremost is the safety issue. I'd ask you to go back and read your decision from 12 years ago, which says that it is the safest way. And the letter that I wrote to you is from Beals and Thomas. It was written to Mr. Robert Morse, the chairman of this board. It was hand-delivered back here in 2016, saying that this is what they agreed to, the current owner, as being the best and safest plan in accordance with the desires of the neighbors and the abutters, including the speed bumps which haven't been put in and the gate which is not used in the way it should be. Right now what happens is the parties up there, they line the cars all the way up there, and it becomes a speedway coming down the easement from that home, and putting 2 more homes back there as opposed to having them come out the other way is only going to increase the lack of safety on that easement. At the time we agreed to this prior arrangement with the 14-foot driveway with the stone on the side and the widened rotary for the so the police and fire had access, because we had a 6-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 6-month-old. That 6-month-old is now 11 years old. He plays in that driveway. He's out there playing street hockey. He's out playing with his friends. He's out playing on his scooter. He's snowmobiling down sledding, everything. And we don't need 3 times as many homes up there to use our easement because he wants to change the access of the police to his property. There is no proof whatsoever that they can't put the houses where they originally planned because they're not marketable. Because in the 12 years since this was originally approved, they've only had a sign up for 5 days, 2 of which have been this week. And to say that they're not marketable at this time is not a basis to change the existing plan, which was already agreed to. I don't know why his lack of proof of why he says we have to do it this way trumps the safety that this town, and you, Mr. Olenoff, as one of the members of the board at that time, have already put into place for the safety of all the people who abut that property and for the safety of the 3 homes that were agreed to at that time. I'd also ask you to look at the preamble to his memorandum from Paul Sullivan as to this, saying that no one will use that driveway. But if you look at page 2 of the project narrative under paragraph 7.111, it says right in it that the easement and access out of Westfield Street will provide adequate emergency vehicle access for all 3 homes. To say that they're not going to be using it for 3 homes is a fool's errand when they're putting it right in writing that that's what they intend to use with this. The application of itself is faulty. The name of the applicant is different from the person who signed it. Coastal Landings LLC is a company next to Trump Tower down in New York City. Coastal Landing Solutions, Inc., which appears to be the actual applicant, is what's here today. There's supposed to be an address on the application. There isn't one. It's a P.O. box. This goes well beyond the 500 feet of driveway because they're expecting to use the driveway right through to our property and down our driveway, which encompasses from South Street to our street about 1,200 feet that they're looking to access. The need of the sidewalk is particularly emphasized, which they want to waive, due to the fact that you have, right now, a 10-foot driveway. I don't know how you're going to have kids walking down that driveway without a sidewalk if you're going to allow them not to widen it. And it's one of the most dangerous corners there at the blind corner. Why you wouldn't allow sidewalks in that area for kids coming around that corner. The house that's closest to the wetlands is asking for a 3-car garage. Obviously, there are environmental issues. If that house were put back where it was supposed to be in the first plan that you approved back in 2006, 3 of them along Summer Street to fit in with the aesthetics of both Summer Street and that lot and the buttered neighbors, we wouldn't have to worry about a conservation issue where we have a 3-car garage right next to in the conservation area. I would like to see the evidence that this property was not marketable under the prior arrangement that you approved for this driveway, which, again, was approved primarily based on the decisions of the fire department for safety reasons. Everything that they are here today for are the exact same things they asked you to waive 12 years ago. They asked then for a waiver of the circle. They asked then for the waiver of the sidewalks. They asked then for the waiver of the 12-foot requirement, which was then there. But Diane Beecham, at that point, expressed at that meeting back in October 19, 2005, that it was the chief's desire to have the 18-foot driveway and to have the circle of 38 feet. There are portions of this driveway that have a 16-degree grade. I don't see where, having them come up and then have to use our driveway, they should be able to turn around and go back down from there, given the particular driveway. And again, I think it's, if you look at your findings, particularly finding number 5 in your prior report, the design and construction standards of the shared driveway will provide adequate access and turnaround for emergency response vehicles, non-emergency municipal vehicles. And that this was the paragraph 6, the increased pavement width and shared driveway improvements in living area and the immediate vicinity of the driveway intersection with Summer Street improves the overall safety of the intersection. This is what we're trying to prevent. We don't want the main access road to be a 10-foot wide easement that's not passable or usable 1/3 of the year. What the fire department envisioned at that time, and I believe why they mandated, they were adamant about it, is to have that circular road in the middle there so that they can go back out the way they came in and have it wide enough that they can get in and out from that spot. So when they come in here and tell you that this is the same roadway, it's not even close what they're requesting. They're asking that 3 houses overburden a 10-foot wide easement on a street that goes down, which has a hill on the left, which makes it a blind driveway on the left. There's a fence on the right, which makes it a blind spot on the right for any of the people in the house on the right. So you've got, as you could see from the photographs that were shown you, there's all trees all the way down to the houses there. So any fire truck that comes down is not going to see any kids at all in that driveway until it's at least halfway down. And the top part of that driveway is much steeper than the bottom half from where the house is, which is halfway up the shared driveway to the street. So it's a much steeper driveway, and then it flattens out towards as it gets to Westfield Street. So now you're asking the fire department to go down a thinner, harder to view pedestrians driveway at a steeper grade than what was proposed and approved here 12 years ago.
I'm gonna just, I don't want to interrupt you, but I just want to add a couple quick comments. So what was approved was never actually built or recorded or anything, right?
Right.
That's clear. Okay. And just so I'm more clear, and Steve obviously has more clarity because he was here, the three houses before and the original plan still had a shared driveway that all fed off of one entry off of Summer.
Right, what you had was it went up to, it's basically the existing driveway with the circle, only wider. And if you see up there on the left, what's it called, lot 9 or 8?
Lot 8.
The three houses were right along Summer Street. 1, 1, 1, and they were just, the lots went like this.
Right.
This is widened this one to shrink this one, so it makes it look like you can't put one there, but that wasn't the case. They just went 3, and it was perfectly fine.
And those are still served by just one driveway, one drive off of Summer? I guess I'm having a hard time visualizing how that actually works.
They were never built that way, so.
Right.
It's just one house right now.
Oh, right, because you said there were no houses shown either, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the original plan didn't show the.
Right.
They're not stating that that's exactly where the house is going.
No, that's clear. So, and the purpose now of the easement drive, or however we want to call it, is what? Is to allow, or what is it? What is the purpose of it? Because I'm it's getting muddy in my mind what that easement drive is doing now, or whatever we're calling it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
The easement was something that came with our property for one house in the back, the house that's existing now. What was clear, if you look back on the June 14, 2006 decision, it was written right into the decision, that none of these other houses would have access to that easement. But as you can see in the preamble to what was proposed today, they're stating that by taking out the circle, we're mandating basically that the fire department, the police department, everybody else who uses that driveway, not to mention, you're not gonna have a FedEx person pull up that driveway without a rotary and decide to turn around. Right now, FedEx, all of them, UPS, they come flying right down our driveway, and there's nothing we can do about it with the one house there. We can't stand out there like policemen and say, okay, you came from the house that has the easement, you didn't, so you can't come down, you didn't, you can't come down. It's an absolutely unworkable situation, which is not warranted because there's already a plan in place to put a circular, make the circle wider, just the one that exists. Leave the tree, which is quite large, go out and take a look at it. There is no trees or foliage or anything, as you saw from that photograph, the aerial photograph. There's nothing around that rotary. It's just a matter of widening the pavement. And then you have a perfect situation where the 3 driveways run off that rotary, they come back down Summer Street, and we don't have to deal with all these trucks and emergency vehicles and everybody else. They want to take that circle out completely and make it one straight driveway through, so it's absolutely impossible for people to turn around without driving up onto the yards or the foliage, or if they put, a wall on each side of the driveway, how do people do that?
Second.
The 2 lots up the front.
I'm sorry, you're gonna have to introduce yourself or take the mic next. Okay.
I'm Joe Tropolo, my wife Maria, I live at 65 Ridge Road with our 2 daughters.
Okay.
And on the original plan that they had proposed, the lot configuration was completely different. Lot 9, which is a new lot, is now almost 3.5 acres. The way the original plan that was put in was what is now Lot 8, which is the existing house, was 3.5 acres. So all of the houses were looking at that drawing, to the right of the circle, up towards Summer Street, and all the lot lines ended there. The lot that is now lot 9 had a wider.
It's the old one, right?
No, this is not.
No, this is the old one. I'm sorry.
He's got the old one.
He's got the old one.
You have the old one?
We live directly behind where that house is. So we have, right now we have, we share the same concerns as far as safety and as far as wetlands and as far as impact to the area there with the woodlands and everything. And with the previous design, one thing that we really have a large problem with, which is going to be a problem for everybody, is with where that house is now. We purchased our lot, that's a single-family lot, there's nothing in the back of that lot. The plan that was approved, the house would have been up forward, we wouldn't see that house. Now that house is gonna be right behind our house, and with that being a 3.5 acre lot, and with where that they show the allowable space where the house can be, that house can be anywhere within that dotted space, which is gonna move it even closer to our house and whatever they put there, and also closer to that driveway. And one of the things is a person that's that far back, if that easement now, which is for emergency use only, is currently being used by other people that aren't supposed to be using that, now with the house moved back, you're gonna even make that an even better egress. And we live in High Ridge Estates. And we're one of the original lot owners in there. Originally in High Ridge Estates, nobody went out the back egress. Everybody only went back down Far Reach Road. Now, once everybody figured that's a quick way to zip out, and it's going to be a similar problem. And, I mean, just even as far as the houses, God forbid, and I know everybody says it might not be more than one event that happens at the same time as far as an emergency event, but if more than one house, something happens to more than one house now, with the way that can, before the houses were all close enough to the street, and they're only proposing to bring in 1.5 inch water line to each of the houses. There's no water coming into that subdivision for fire protection, and if the first house catches on fire and the fire department has to come in there now, with more trucks, they're gonna have to go down Summer Street, down Westfield Street, come back up the Gillis's driveway to come back through a narrow access to get back to the houses. So, and, as far as we're concerned, I mean, they're basically trying to reconfigure this because they say they couldn't sell the original arrangement that they had, the original division. But now, by them changing what they're doing, it's going to impact a lot of things, safety, the wetlands, and it's also going to impact the neighborhood. This is a negative impact with this current configuration to the 4 houses that surround the area where the 4 houses are gonna be most affected are the 3 on Westfield and our house. So now this plan, which they're proposing for their benefit, is gonna be a detriment to the neighborhood that is behind this piece of property right now.
Just to remind you, if you look at finding number 4, when you first allowed this other driveway, it said the shared driveway with the minimal negative impact on historical aesthetic character of Summer Street. That's what the 3 houses being built as they were here. This is what was configured before. They had 1, 2, 3. There were no houses back here. There was nothing near the wetlands, and these houses were closest to Summer Street, so they wouldn't be using this egress down here. Now, with this house back here and this house here, it's not only gonna increase that, but it's gonna overburden, as I mentioned before, the easement that we have. And again, if you look at the project narrative, it says that they're changing these configurations because they're unable to successfully market them for sale. There's only been a sign down there for 5 days. in the
Yeah,
last
I
12
think you
years.
mentioned that
But
sufficiently.
I'll finish with that, but the key issue is the safety issue. The fire chief came in here and put in a plan in place, which you adopted, the prior board. There was something that obviously would rather not have any houses up there, but we were accepted. And if you look back at their engineer's report, which was submitted to the town, we agreed to it as long as they put in the speed bumps, which they did, and then they closed the gate, which they don't. But regardless of that, we understand he has the right to put 3 homes there, but I don't see why, when something was worked out and was much safer than what's being proposed, a undocumented inability to sell the house is a reason to negate all the safety reasons and the other reasons that you've heard here tonight.
Okay, thank you. We'll hear from one more, maybe? Well, we don't have many more people in the room, so.
I'm Sarah Cochran. I own Lot 4.
Use the microphone.
I'm sorry, could you approach the dais?
I'm Sarah Cochran. I own Lot 4. So I am in agreement with Michael and Joe Topolini because my house runs along the east driveway as well. And I am more partial to no houses being built, just because I would like to preserve the open space along the road. And Lot 8, which is the original hunting lodge that was built in the 20s, I think it deserves to have the property maintained as it originally was.
Okay. Thank you.
Part of the property, the shed is being proposed to be torn down, part of the historic property, in order to put in the new driveway. That's, I think, what she was referring to, which is not part of the original plan to tear down existing structures in the historical house.
Okay. Thank
Wait a
you.
minute, what is historical here?
Well, the original house on that property is the old hunting lodge. That's the house that's there now.
Lot 8, but that's going to stay.
The one that's on 8.
But there's a shed.
Oh,
Shed's being moved, it's not being demolished.
Well, it says to be removed and demolished. It's the
Moving it
same
to another
thing.
location on site.
Okay.
It doesn't say that on the plan.
Okay.
It's removed. We can add it.
All right. So, if there are no more public comments for the moment, this is a lot of information, I think, for the board to try to sift through. I certainly hear the abutters' concerns, and I guess what I'm a little bewildered by is which of these concerns are present today and what has been done to try to mitigate them. For instance, it sounds like the back way out of the site is in use as a route out or for delivery trucks or whatever at this moment in time. And has there been any effort from any side to mitigate that? And how might that be done in the future?
Okay, so, the original plan was to widen that circle so that the UPS trucks could go around the circle and go back out the way they came. So that was never done. So that's why the UPS trucks are still going through.
The reason was, that was the insistence of the fire chief for the fire trucks. And it also would be the same safety benefit for trucks that are out there. But it was never done because the subdivision was, the 2 additional vehicles were never built. The 2 additional homes were never built.
Yeah, so the plan was never implemented.
Right.
So they still have the
Right.
original problem of UPS trucks all this time still going through, simply because those UPS trucks can't turn around. The current circle's too small.
No, because they're proposing to take out the circle. So
Yeah.
they won't be able to turn around.
Well, no,
Now
all right,
they-
well,
Now they can.
yeah, I understand. Well, we want to figure out what we can do here.
Okay, let's get back to some of the facts. We're not taking anything out, we're doing the same proposed circle we had before, that you approved in 2006.
And it's widened from how many feet to how many feet?
It's gonna be 50 feet wide.
And it was original, right now it's how many feet?
I don't have the pavement on here, so I couldn't.
But it's pretty small.
Right. And we're not changing that a bit from the original proposal. We are changing the house locations, but that's a property owner's right to locate the houses where they want. We have more than a 200-foot setback from the rear of our property line. I don't think that's inappropriate when the rear yard setback is 30 feet. This is a meadow for sure, and it might look good to someone living off the property. That new home may interfere with their viewscape. The best way to deal with that sort of thing, in my experience, is to buy the land, because you don't own the viewscape unless you own the land. So we can talk all day long about where the houses should or shouldn't be. That's up to the developer, where they go. This house here at 480 Sumner Street has a historic easement access through here. That's not changing. Nothing's changing that. They can continue to come and go through that access. That's their right to do so. These 2 homes have no right to do that. So there's nothing in their deed that allows them to do it. That's what restricts it.
And their driveways are kind of head in the other
Well,
direction.
if a UPS truck comes to this house, where's he gonna go? Over, way out through dirt road in that direction? No, he's gonna go back up this way. It doesn't make sense.
It's paved.
Can someone just tell?
Is the road paved or dirt or gravel or what? I mean, come on. We have the engineer here telling us it's gravel, and you telling us it's paved. So, thank you.
Yes.
And it's paved.
All right.
I haven't been down there, so I don't know.
What's that?
Site visitors and all of that.
Clearly, by everyone in the room apparently, except the residents who live there.
Essentially, that's it. We have a 3-lot subdivision here. We can put these houses anywhere we want on that subdivision by simply relotting them. We're not doing anything unusual. We haven't changed the plan from the original approval. If these folks have a right of access through here, so do the emergency responders. That's not changing. But it is not our primary access and never intended to be. This is the primary access. That's why we're upgrading the road to do that. They're not gonna go way out through here if they have this brand new road here.
That seems fair. All right, if you have one more, Mike's passed out on me. So
Our
I apologize.
batteries are dying, I think.
Yeah. Go ahead.
They're continuously saying that the plan hasn't changed, okay? The first plan that they came in with, the driveway may be in a similar location, but the plan has changed drastically.
I think we understand that. We
And-
don't need to keep reiterating the same comments about the change of plan. We can all read the plan that was here before. We see the houses are different, et cetera, et cetera. But is there a new point you'd like to make?
No.
Okay, I'm not trying to be,
Nope.
I'm just, we try to maintain a little, it's 10:15 also, so just trying to figure out a way to move ahead here.
Well, I think definitely a site visit is in order, and I'm thinking about this, but I'm also like thinking that, so if they had proposed a fully wide driveway, the 22 feet and everything, and cut down the trees and everything, what's our review at that point, Abby? Like what do we have, what discretion do we have on that? What I'm thinking is that if they built a huge road, then they could do whatever they want to with the houses.
Right, if it was a standard subdivision, they'd have to meet your subdivision rules and regs. But then you don't have any control over the landscaping or the layout of the houses, but your review authority is on the road and the infrastructure. There is more because that's when sidewalks and street trees would be required.
But what they're asking is an A&R, number one, just to subdivide the property into 3 lots and then put in a shared driveway. And the shared driveway, our regulations do not put any requirements on what the width of that shared driveway is, or any other features of it.
And the length of it is not.
Also not,
Right, there's
So-
no
So,
clear.
we certainly have concerns about, how far away is that house from the street, things like that. But there are no regulations specifically prohibiting that house from being located there.
And what about the overburdening of the easement, the idea that it originally lot 8, one house, clearly people are not gonna be able to determine, oh, you're coming from this other house, so stop.
Right, that could be. I mean, we haven't seen the easement, but it sounds like the easement was intended for the one property.
So I think we tried to, by putting up a sign, requiring a sign there that says do not enter.
Right.
Try to keep everyone from going down and using that easement. Now, I don't think the fire department will allow that to be locked.
Right, I think your old decision said a gate to be closed but not locked. But the idea of your last approval and now would be that the road is widened so that, with a turnaround, so that trucks do not have to go. Emergency vehicles can turn around and go out, back out on Summer Street and not through the emergency access.
But am I correct to say that lot 8 just has an easement? It doesn't have to be emergency vehicles. UPS trucks that are delivering at lot 8 can by right use this, go down their driveway. Is that the correct?
Is that-
In either direction.
What would, if the easement were to disappear, would that ease some of the abutters' concern? That would certainly ease the traffic on the easement, which shouldn't have the easement
Are
on
those
it. but-
lots approved, like how they are? Have they been?
Well, not yet, that's
Yeah.
part of the.
That's what we're doing right now, or, well, not right now.
Right,
but-
if, right now you have the special permit for the shared driveway in front of you, and if you approve that, then they would need to file an A&R approval not required plan to actually create the lots.
So that none of those have been.
So I don't think the fire
Right.
department wants to lose that as an emergency access.
To answer your
Doesn't sound
question, That would solve all of our problems, and we'd be happy to leave the gate there for emergency access. If the easement were given up, we have no problem with the fire department or any emergency vehicle. Why, it's to our benefit. But the problem
Yeah.
is all the other vehicles that will now have 3 times as many vehicles up there as currently there, which by definition will, people are people, and they're, whether they have an easement or not, they're gonna go down there, and there's no way we can tell who's an invited guest of house 1, 2, or 3, and who's a truck for house 1, 2, or 3. At least when the Saunders were there, and now the Mohanas are there, we know the vehicles. And we know who is allowed, who's not allowed. And because of the steepness off of Summer Street, oftentimes, those people will come up the other way because it's an easier way. It's what the Mohanas do, it's what the Saunders do. They come up more in the winter because it's an easier hill to get up. That other road with the 16-degree hills makes it very difficult in the snowstorm to get up. And so those other 2 homes, yeah, maybe their house is closer to Summer Street, but the easier access is to use our easement, as will their trucks and everybody else, come up that way to get to their house, which they're not allowed to do. But it's still going to be up there with a infrared light taking live action photographs of every plate that goes by like the Mass Pike. We're not going to be able to police.
I mean, I think if we construct a new driveway there off Summer Street, and the first driveway is at 100 feet, I don't know why any delivery truck going into 7 would go all the way down and go out to Westfield Street. Doesn't seem to be logical.
Because they can't,
It's
they
not-
come up
nothing's-
Westfield because they
nothing-
can't get up
it's
from
an
Summer
eight-
Street
it's an
because
eight-
of the.
It's an 8% grade. It's an 8% grade. When we finish constructing it, it won't be as steep
Oh,
as it
and
is.
they are coming from Westfield Street now?
Yes.
Because they know,
The drivers are the same drivers.
That's the
anyway.
same driver.
yeah.
It's a shorter distance to cut through the driveway to get to those homes
Yeah.
than it is to
No,
go
can
around the
we-
corner to Summer Street.
Can we tell the fire department, for the fire department, put their own lock on that gate? And then that would solve all these problems?
Fine with me.
If they,
Certainly.
that's if the fire department would allow to
Well, the
lock
fire
the gate.
department has to get out to open the gate, because the gate is supposed to be closed. And if they have their own lock on it, they could quickly unlock it.
What happens now is that every time we walk up, every morning I go up with the dog, close the gate, then a day or 2 it's open. If the easement wasn't there and the owner wants to give up the easement and we, write it in however we want, that obviously whether it's an easement or not, the police and fire would have access to that road to get to any place.
Right.
I don't think you need an easement for that. That would solve the problem, because then any vehicle that comes up and down that driveway is trespassing, unless it's police. fire.
Have you approached him about such a proposal?
He agreed to it last time when we agreed to the plan, and then he reneged. And I have that in writing. I have a letter from his attorney, I have a letter from him. He made it right here, right outside this room. And that's one of the reasons why we agreed to the original plan to start with. He also agreed to the speed bumps, which aren't there to this day. And we agreed to keep the gate shut, which isn't there to this day. So we have tried, and we were told that he would, and then he reneged.
Well, like,
But we'll see
we're
the
here
plan.
today, this is a precipice to this whole project.
He's not.
Right.
What do you say we try again, guys? Try and work something up. Just makes sense, make everything easier for everybody.
I think that solves all the problems.
Don't let us stop you.
Well, I'm struggling on my first night on the chair to sort of figure out how to proceed here a little bit, but I would say,
Set a date for a site visit.
Yeah, I
And
would
then
say,
continue the hearing.
yeah, I would recommend we, entertain a motion to continue this hearing. You have a recommended date, is our next agenda, what does our next agenda look like? Do we have a
May
sense?
23rd is your next meeting with the Brigham again.
right, lest we forget. Yeah. And to give the board a chance to visit the site.
So do you want to visit together or people separately?
I probably personally can't commit to a group visit, but we should all make an effort to either go in smaller groups or on our own, I think, before our next meeting.
Why don't we continue it to June to give, or is that gonna?
Well, it's been going on for how many years, so I don't think
No,
there's a rush
this
here.
is the first time it's been put on for this meeting.
because it's an extension of, they went 8 times before the board for their renewal of the permit of the original plan. Now they're coming up with a completely different plan and asking for 500 more feet of the special driveway.
Right.
So they're asking for more length and they're showing us for the first time a completely different look.
We're not asking for any more length in the driveway. We're using the existing
I
driveway
know,
as
but
approved.
lot placement's all different.
The way that the warrant read was that
Okay,
they were
okay,
asking
we understand what's at hand.
I would just ask that instead of that meeting, which I think is the 13th, that we go to the following one, because we'll be away on vacation that week.
So that would be the 19th?
Your next scheduled meetings are May 23rd, June 13th, and June 27th.
Okay, so how about June 13th?
That's what I'm saying, can we go to June 27th? Because
Oh, okay, I see.
I think the 27th doesn't work for the applicant.
What's the next meeting after that?
2 weeks beyond
We haven't set,
Oh, sorry.
we were going to try to review July.
I have him on my calendar all set up. July 11th.
Why don't we do the 23rd, come back on the 23rd, and then if we have to push it out after that, push it out. Otherwise, it's going to be a
May
long time until
23rd
the next meeting.
again.
We'll be
It just,
following the Brigham again.
Yeah, we can do this site visit on the way to our subcommittee meeting about.
I mean,
If
we can schedule,
you could-
we can schedule our July 11th meeting right now and set it to them,
I would prefer that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I prefer that.
So
To
is everyone
July
available July
11th.
Yeah, I am.
The applicant would prefer to meet sooner.
Obviously,
If-
yes.
I don't know, many applicants want to wait 2 months. to
Yeah,
second
it
meeting.
is.
It's pretty unusual.
May 23rd, we could try to arrange a site visit if you want me to coordinate one that we could post, or if you want to go out on your, individually, on your free time. Okay.
I think that'll make it easier for everyone.
Okay, so if everyone could go there as soon as possible, May 23rd meeting, although, can you give the applicant direction on, I guess, do you have thoughts on the width of the drive? Prior, so that they can begin working on
So
the
are
revisions?
those, hammerheads on each of the other 2 properties adequate for fire trucks to turn around? I don't think you covered that in your presentation.
Sorry, the hammerheads?
The 2 new driveways. Yeah, how fire trucks would turn around in those, did you calculate those adequately for them?
The radius turns inside the driveways.
Say a fire truck comes into either lot 9 or lot 7, how do they get out?
They back out of a driveway, onto the common driveway.
Back out where? Show me.
Yeah, you don't try to turn a fire truck around in a home, in a driveway. You can do it in a common driveway, but you can't do it here.
Yeah, but I know for a fact, our fire truck, well, our fire chief has told us quite emphatically his fire trucks do not back out.
And that's true of all fire chiefs, and that's true out in the public way, and it will be true in this common drive, but it's not true in private driveways.
Driveways would be huge.
You would have an
Impervious
enormous,
surface.
well, this cul-de-sac would have to be on each driveway. We don't do that. You don't do that in subdivisions, you don't do that anywhere.
So much asphalt there.
This was the benefit of the other plan, is that all the houses could be reached from the cul-de-sac by moving that house way back and not having to, it changes.
The other plan, the
yeah.
house was right here. One
So
house
how long
house
are
was
those-
right here, so
Yeah.
I don't see how that, it's right next to the wetlands.
So how?
You could hardly fit
Yeah.
anything in there.
Oh, so you were shortening that driveway anyway by trying to make it off of the circle? Is that possible?
We're gonna look at that coming down through here.
And then how long would that driveway be at that point?
I'm gonna say maybe 150 feet long.
Okay, so, I mean, unless they really had to, the fire trucks wouldn't even go down those driveways.
No, they'd park.
Yeah, so they would park at the circle up to there, so, and how long is the other driveway?
This one here is probably about 160, 70 feet, something like that.
Okay.
All right, so, well, aside from that, I mean, what's our position on the width of the road?
I mean, it sounds like the fire department doesn't like it, right? That's the gist.
I mean, but however, we're not governed by our subdivision
Right.
laws here.
I think we just make it as wide as we can without removing any trees.
Yeah, and I would say, ask the applicant to look at that scenario and also to incorporate the drivable, the grass, sorry,
The pavers.
pavers, thank you very much. And thirdly, I think looking at the Lot 9 house and trying to find a location that is not within the conservation buffer zone would be things to look at for
Yeah, I
the
mean,
next.
it's so close to being not in the 100-foot zone.
Yeah,
You think you
let's
can
just move it.
a couple of feet.
Sure.
Yeah.
And one final question, these used to be lots 1, 2, and 3, how do they become lots 7, 8, and 9?
Those are land court numbers. They won't let you
Okay.
reuse numbers. You start.
Oh, you gotta,
left
oh, you
off,
gotta,
go from there.
no, they wouldn't let you, so the 1, 2, and 3 were already.
No, they have a plan on record that has
All that
lots 1 through 5.
Oh, okay.
In the original plan, that lot line for this first lot is right about here. It goes out to the street on a diagonal. This house was not back
Yeah.
here. That house was gonna be somewhere up in here, up the front. You know, they're telling you the house was back here. That's where that lot is. I mean, if you look at the original plans. And now, you know, putting that house there does do a lot as far as take away from open space that's in that lot. And the original home that was in there, the hunting lodge had all of the land, not the new houses. The new house, one of them that one there was about an acre, and the one next to it was a little bit under an acre and a half. So now, as far as the property and the open space and everything on the back end where we are, it's being greatly diminished. And,
Okay.
you know, just for the benefit of them trying to come up with something that they say is more marketable. But I would think Beals and Thomas that drew it originally, and when they went over this with the owner, somebody figured out that they were gonna be able to get the houses in there, and they were going to be able to sell them. I mean, Beals and Thomas did all of High Ridge Estates. So they had some idea as far as what was going on here. And, you know, and I will also say, we would have had different opposition to that first plan, but because of the fact that the houses were up at the street, where we were didn't have a problem, and it wasn't going to be as much as a burden on even on public safety on the houses that are being built. So, you know, it's a little difficult now to say that, well, the first one went through, because there would have been a lot of other things that would have been discussed the first time around had an arrangement like this been drawn up. I mean, it was definitely clear, and it's definitely shown in the drawings, the houses would have been up on the front towards Summer Street. So everything that is in the back would have been preserved. The bulk of that, you know, the bulk of that piece of property.
Can I just make one point? This is open space for High Ridge right here. It wraps all the way around. Right back here where this gentleman's house is, it's all woods. His house is probably 40 or 50 feet above this field that's back here. He's way up here looking down on the field. It's not, we're not directly abutting each other.
So we have a perfect view of a nice open space area that's wooded with the meadow.
All right, sure. Okay, I think.
Could you,
Lot 9 is gonna be for sale. This gentleman
I think
can
I'd
Could
like to
you-
make a motion, I'd like to make a quick comment on a motion.
Please.
So, the thing that concerns me is this overuse of the easement. I would love to save the trees here. What the property owner does with his property is up to the property owner to a large extent, but I am concerned that there's no way to protect the delivery trucks and everything from going through that. So I'd like to hear a solution that really satisfies what they're saying about that. That's what I'd like to see when we reconvene.
Yeah.
And then I wanna go out here and take a look at this and see what's really gonna happen. But, so I wanna make a motion that we continue this special permit public hearing to May 23. And that we, in the meantime, at this location at 7 PM at May 23. And in the meantime, we'll, on our own, do a site visit
Yeah.
look at this.
So I'll second that, but Paul, could you mark the four corners of the proposed houses so we can locate them on the site the next few days, and so we know where those houses would be?
It may take more than the next few days, but
Okay.
I can do that.
Can I ask if we could?
And so
reconvene this-
do it and let
I'll let
Abby know. Okay.
Is it possible to reconvene this to 8 o'clock that evening, so we don't have to sit here for an hour through the prior meeting like we did 2 hours tonight? I'm on trial that week, and it's an imposition for me to be here in the first place. To sit here while I'm working.
I don't know how to
I
make
usually
decisions.
wait to decide the order based on the plans I've received to see how up to date they are, and if something looks like it'll be faster, then I think we could put this on first. I think it's a little too early to tell the exact order of the agenda.
My
Yeah.
only
Well-
request would be is that if we're not first and we go through the other one, which is your prerogative obviously to do, that we not be required to be here till 8 o'clock instead of 7, so we don't have to, I'm assuming that's gonna last an hour.
Yeah, I would imagine once you see the published agenda, you could probably intimate just what time you should be here. I mean, it's.
We can easily,
Right.
did we make a motion yet to,
Yes, and you seconded.
can you amend the motion to 8 o'clock? How's that?
Absolutely.
Well, the one thing is, if it looks like it might be faster, that means you can't go earlier.
It's gonna be fast?
No, this one. If this one might be
Yeah.
faster than the other one, that means you can't start till 8, unless you want to just say.
But are you saying that you'd rather go later? Because
I'd rather not sit here for 2 hours before we start. That's all.
Well.
I have a trial practice, and that date is not good for me at all. I'm trying a case that week, and so it's an imposition for me to have to be here that week anyways, which to accommodate their schedule rather than the June date I'll do, but I can't afford to be sitting there for a couple hours.
Right. Well, the meeting starts at 7, and we usually try to post the agenda at least the Wednesday before the meeting, and we'll have a better time frame by then, because you've received material.
I mean, I've only been here for a year, but we can't guarantee like slotted times for everybody, so I think we just stick with that, and we try to, hopefully things get worked out in the meantime.
Yeah, but you can ask Abby, she can
Right.
tell you.
I mean,
For sure, it's not gonna.
I think the alternative is one of the June dates, and there was you folks had a conflict. One of the June dates, and you folks have a conflict with the other June date. So it's the 20. I mean, the motion's for the 23rd, and we'll do the best we can.
with the agenda, that's, I think, all we can really deal with right now. There was a motion on the second,
yes.
For 7 o'clock.
for 7 o'clock, yes, on the 23rd. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right, it's unanimous. Thank you, Paul.
Take the time to negotiate.
Yes.
Make everything easier.
Now, obviously, it's coming back.
Of course.
I was thinking, when I was talking, I was thinking the same thing. If somebody would please just conversation.
All right, our next item, oh my God, these things.
Killing me. The next item is the approval of performance guarantee and endorsement of the Canton Terrace definitive subdivision plan, which is approved on 2/7/17.
Right, in February, you approved the definitive subdivision plan for Canton Terrace. You had a few conditions for plan changes. You received those final revised plans. The 20-day appeal period has ended, so the town clerk has certified on the plans that the appeal has ended without an appeal, and the applicant has provided a covenant. That was uploaded to your electronic packet. I think we still have that here for you. So before you endorse the plans, you have to accept the covenant. So I've reviewed this, and I reviewed this with town council. It took a little bit of time to receive because you had to get they had to get signatures from more than one property owner, but they have the signatures. So it requires, I know Brian was not here during this application, but it needs a majority of the planning board members to accept the covenant and then endorse the subdivision plans.
Okay. Let's take a quick look at that. So do we have the subdivision plan?
Yep. So I have 3 plan sets here.
turn them around and we just walk around and maybe.
Yeah, let's do
Oh,
like
yeah.
a little walk.
So there's three.
It's a new regime. We're gonna do it different. We're gonna do everything
Okay, so there's 3 plan sets here. If you could sign all 3 of them, I think they're only looking for a signature on the cover page and then sheet 3. So I have tabs. So let me spread them out.
Okay, which direction are we going?
All right. And there's a Mylar, so we have the special pen for this one. Just sheets, the cover sheet and sheet 3.
You have this, are we gonna be signing the names for the registers of deeds? You have that?
Yes, we have that next. So Brian, it's up to you. Usually, if someone wasn't on it, they don't sign.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So I think Dave and Mike.
Yeah, there's just the 2 in there? Oh, that was dirty.
So which one, where's the?
Oh, that's fascinating.
Oh, these are papers? There's a Mylar at the end.
I think there's 1 Mylar.
Oh, yeah. Oh, without my glasses. Oh, no.
So that Mylar one, when you have those papers, that's, oh wait, you're not signing it. So I think for the record, you should make a motion on accepting the covenant and voting to sign, endorse the plans. Now, if you recall, these plans were, it's down there, these were the plans that were submitted with an intent for a zoning freeze from the 2015 zoning. And so your signatures is really securing that zoning freeze for 8 years.
Oh, I wonder how many more times we'll get to see it in that
So,
8 years.
May
so
9th.
So we need a motion, you said?
Need a motion to
To
accept the covenant.
accept the covenant and endorse the subdivision plans.
All right, I make a motion to accept
Oh, where's the Mylar?
the subdivision
It's
covenant.
sheet 3.
Oh, use the,
Yeah.
the fancy
When I
ones.
get to that, are we not signing every copy now?
Okay, so I make a motion to approve the performance guarantee and endorsement of Canton Terrace definitive subdivision plan, approved on February the 7th, 2017.
Now a second.
Okay, I have a,
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those not in favor, say nay. Any abstentions?
I'm gonna abstain.
Okay, 1 abstention.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay. We're good, right?
Yes,
On that,
that's
on
for that one.
Musta's latest, okay. Item 5 was board reorganization of regional and town committees. I think we have a cheat sheet somewhere here.
Oh, yes. So each year at this meeting after town meeting, you select the your regional, or I guess, committees that you sit on. So this is a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen are reviewing all appointments, I think, in the next month or so. So you make this recommendation to them, and then they'll make the official appointments in June or July. think you had a list of
Just the four
the
here?
committees.
MAPC.
Yep, MAPC, TRIC, MBTA Regional Advisory Committee. What was the other one?
Transportation Advisory Council.
Oh,
So what happened, what about the long-range financial committee?
there is a long-range financial planning committee. However, that's not, they don't usually have a planning board specific representative that has to be on the planning board. They just appointed Chris Paff last month.
So is that
Previously, it was Bruce Montgomery, and he continued even after he was on the planning board. So I think right now they're not asking for a new appointment. But I think Chris was sitting on the housing partnership.
He was housing with me, yeah, and he also did the long-term planning. He did it before he was appointed, did he not?
So you,
The long-range planning, well, he wasn't officially appointed until like last month.
so
You
when-
had recommended a year ago.
But he did, for the whole year, he did do it.
No, actually he didn't. I don't think he was appointed till very recently.
Okay.
so ones that shouldn't change, MAPC's all set, I think.
Trick is all said.
TRIC is all set, and I was wondering about the Regional Transportation Advisory Council. I am on there, but I don't get to vote because,
You're also on TRIC.
because I'm also on, yeah, well, on the,
But you're not a voting member of Trick.
no, I am an alternate to the MPO from the town of Norwich, TRIC.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
So, so that makes me unable to vote at the region. So there's no sense in me being the alternate.
Right.
And I just go as a TRIC representative and don't vote.
Okay,
so we can
I'll-
fill in that one.
I'll take your alternate there if you take my alternate on the housing.
Well, I don't need any more. We need Brian.
Oh, okay.
I'd be happy to do housing.
Okay.
So housing. So are you going to do you be the
Transportation. Or,
you're
Regional
so-
transportation, yeah.
yeah.
So it's Chris, so yeah, you're gonna take over on housing from Chris, and Brian be the alternate?
Now you lost me. I thought we were
Because-
switching. I thought we were just installing Brian in housing. Oh, sorry, I see what you're saying.
As the alternate,
Right.
because,
Well, between,
I can stay with housing. I can do the Trick and the housing. Brian can come on to housing with me.
okay, yeah.
And we just do one more thing for Brian to do.
So, the MBTA Advisory Board, Dave, you wanna continue as,
He can take that.
okay.
Give him
Where
the
was the one,
cast
the one we were discussing also was the, Islington Central Task Force.
yeah, I think I'd like to continue on with that, given that we're entering the selectmen's approval process period.
I believe those appointments were 3-year appointments.
Oh,
So I
that's,
don't
yeah,
think
that's what I thought.
Oh,
It's
so
up for
that's
grabs,
not
right?
really
It's
up for,
That makes sense.
oh, okay then,
So what's, do we have, are you gonna say
I'm happy to stay on RTAC, although they don't like to call it that anymore apparently, but whatever.
No, it's the advisory
It's
council.
much more snap.
no,
RTAC
no.
is much snappier.
It's actually right in the bylaws.
Right.
That is to be created as advisory council.
Right.
The alternate is available, and that's,
For MBTA?
no, the Regional Transportation Advisory Council is available, the alternate to Trevor. That meets the third Wednesday, well, it meets tomorrow. The
Yeah,
third.
It's usually the second or third Wednesday of the month.
Is it,
right?
wait a minute. Oh, Is tomorrow the second Wednesday of the month?
Must
That's
be.
the second, so meet the second Wednesday of every month, 3 o'clock at the State Transportation Building.
Which is in Boston, which makes it really convenient, unless you
Yeah.
work
Super
in Boston.
It's very convenient, you hop on the train, exactly as a train from Westwood, will get you there
Well-
just in time for the meeting.
I mean, I happen to work, I just work in Boston, it doesn't really matter to me, but it's not exactly a popular one for anybody else.
Doesn't sound like it.
It's,
Well, I guess what I've always wondered is, and I'm not trying to I'm not trying to diminish it, but like, what is the alternative is, if Brian would be an actual voting, would actually have voting capability, right?
right, if you weren't there, then Brian would attend and he could vote.
Right. Although the frequency with which you're getting to vote on is pretty low, but that's besides the point.
Well, you're voting on a board which is an advisory board to begin with.
Yeah, exactly. It's
But it's more than that though, because the chairman of the advisory council sits on the MPO and she votes on that. So whatever and she votes the way the advisory council wants it to, or the way she feels the advisory council favors any issue.
Throw me on it, that's fine.
all right. Sounds good.
Oh, so shall I keep the advice of Steve, we'll just keep the same things then?
So you keep the same two, and then the housing partnership will be
It's gonna be me and you.
Mike and Brian.
Yep.
Oh, right.
Mike and Brian.
Me and Brian,
Brian would be.
and me
so
and you
have
were
two
gonna
new
stay on a
alternates
trick.
Great,
to break you in.
great.
You know, as an alternate, it's always good. I'm the alternate on the MPO. I attend all MPO meetings, so when I have to fill in, I know what's going on. I'm also the alternate on the for TRIC, and I attend practically all those meetings, so I'm available. I can fill in. I know what's going on. So I encourage alternates to attend as many meetings as they can.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. It takes about, I've been going to RTAC meetings for 2 years, and I don't really know what's going on yet. So
Right.
it takes a lot of time to
And
figure
it is the advisory council.
It is the
so
advisory
you haven't
council.
picked that up yet.
Right.
I got
But the housing partnership is a local, one, so they meet really when called. There's not a set
When
schedule.
When Nora
Right.
calls you,
Right.
you show up.
So we just have 3 changes then. and it's,
All right,
good.
good. All right, I guess while we're on council, so Nora nudged me earlier to say that we should declare that Steve and I will be part of the subcommittee for the Brigham thing.
Brigham?
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense.
All right.
Do we need to do anything other than just state that, or is it more just?
Yeah, chairman, you appoint people, so you appoint yourself.
I-
Just make an official
Right.
appointment so that it's a
Recorded.
official subcommittee as
sure.
opposed to an unofficial.
All right, so I'll make I will officially appoint myself and Mr. Olenoff to the subcommittee for the Brigham project at University Station.
Okay.
You need a second?
I don't know if we do need a second.
No, if you already
I'm
just appoint.
I'm just-
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, just goes on the
And then
minute.
Abby will contact you with the meeting date.
Okay.
All right, final item, I think, 6 of 7. Signatures for registry deeds.
Right, so I'm going to just pass around, each year you submit your signatures so that when you sign these plans and it goes to the registry, it can be recorded and not rejected. So if everyone can sign those.
And maybe while we're doing that, if it's okay to keep going, given the hour we're talking about. Upcoming ZBA applications or new applications, apparently. Some meeting schedule for June through December.
Oh, yeah.
I know did you not send around suggested dates?
I just had some suggested dates in my meeting summary. I know Dave said he was away the first week in August. I didn't hear from anyone else, so.
Do we think we could all commit to replying to Abby this week with
Yes.
with problems, I guess, on those dates, given that it's 10 minutes to 11?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Do we have any decisions to sign other than what we've already done? from prior meetings? Sorry, I'm just trying to
no,
bang through
sorry,
the last
no
things
other-
here. Okay.
No, just what's going on.
Sorry, yep. All right, I'm going to sign this real fast. Okay.
So is the board okay with, if you all send me dates and then I try to pick dates at work with everyone?
The dates were
I
fine,
don't,
except why are we doing, what is it, one in December instead of two?
because we want to give ourselves a break over the holidays. I don't know.
But I mean, that's what I originally had, that's why I have on my calendar.
I mean, I was just, the Tuesday, December 12th is the beginning of Hanukkah, so I thought maybe the Monday, the 11th, so you don't interfere at the holiday, and it's kind of, that's 2 weeks after your
You had- what's the
November
matter with
meeting.
the 5th and the I had on my originally the 5th and the 19th. What's the matter with those two dates? One of the other of those two dates.
In December?
Yeah.
You could, it just, do you want to meet twice in November? Because that would be only 1 week between meetings. I was kind of backtracking from trying to avoid having a meeting the night after town meeting, and then there's Thanksgiving holiday
I have
in
an
November.
If we send Abby our vacation schedule
Okay.
for the summer, then that might change the week
The
actually.
layout. Yeah.
Right, I try to spread the meetings out
So
to
we'll
if
just
everyone to send me
Send the
their times.
vacation.
Okay, because I think I'm going to be going away in August, so I,
Yeah.
Even though Steve
put
has
away.
already.
But we're talking to December.
yeah,
The-
okay.
How about can we all just send Abby some conflicts?
Yep.
Yeah. Rather than
including
doing it
December.
Monday, the 11th. In fact, there's nothing really that wrong with the December 12th. It's not a solemn holiday or anything. It's
Well, it might be difficult for someone if they want to, December 12th, Hanukkah?
yeah. It's not anything that we need to avoid that much.
Well, we don't know what.
We don't know
we'll
who's
have on
going
the
to come
application, yeah.
to the meeting.
And it's not that kind of holiday where.
Okay.
It is for some.
Anyway,
Committee reports? Do we have any committee reports that we
No, just that the task force dates, their upcoming meetings changed. They're going to be meeting jointly, or the Board of Selectmen, attending the Board of Selectmen meeting on Tuesday, May 16th. That will be the Board of Selectmen hearing the presentation in response to the RFP.
Yep.
So that'll be Tuesday the 16th at Thurston Middle School, and then I think it was Wednesday the 31st was the second date at Thurston.
Do we have any, do we have any minutes to approve, or do we defer
Yes.
minute approval, or?
If anyone read them quick, there was April 11th, and then the February 27th, that was really, you attended and you sat in the audience of the selectmen's meeting when Brigham gave her presentation. Trevor wasn't there that night, but Steve, Dave, and Mike there. There was no discussion, so I waited for the Board of Selectmen's minutes to be approved and just kind of wrote that summary if anyone had a chance to look at that. If not, you can continue to the next one.
I haven't had a chance to look at anything, to be honest, so maybe just postpone that for next.
Okay.
For the repeat of this meeting we're having.
Yes, it will be.
Definitely. Okay, next meeting is 5/23 at 7 PM in this room.
I move we adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
Okay.
All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.